All right, welcome everybody and have a nice evening, hopefully with the stream. Today I'm going to be flying with the new Challenger 650 from HotStart. So they are the guys behind the TBM 900 also for the X-Plane simulator. And I'm planning on doing a short flight just to illustrate how this plane works. In the simulator, we'll be flying from the Canary Islands of La Palma to the Canary Islands of Lanzarote, I think. So the furthermost islands on the west and the east, because I thought it was already long enough time to start up the plane, and the flight itself doesn't have to be too long. And hi Hank, thanks for joining for this stream. I will jump into the plane. Basically, I've just selected the plane in X-Plane, and this is the screen that you are welcomed with when you load into the simulator, but load into the plane with the simulator, and then you can start between carrier mode and a non-persistent mode. I hope the audio levels are fine for the stream, so let me know if something is not alright with that. And then I prefer doing carrier mode because then everything is persistent in the plane. All the switches will stay as you leave them. The plane actually leaves at the airport or at the stand where you leave it, but it's still possible to load into a different spot. So that's what we'll do because I've done this flight also 2 days ago just to test things out. But I will now load into the original spot in La Palma. So you will see that's also possible. And also when you select carrier mode, and there is a bit of kind of story around every flight. It's a bit different than just jumping into a cold and dark plane. Thanks, Hank, for the sound check. So it's a bit different than just doing jumping into a cold and dark plane. You will see why. So when you select carrier mode, then you can see that there is a list of airframes you can choose from. And also hi to Jean-Claude. Thanks for joining. So here is a list of plane you can choose from, and I've already made my own plane. So this is the Oscar Oscar Papa Sierra Papa. And then there are some options you can do for the plane itself. That you want the runway length displayed in meters, weight in kilograms, and then also for the DAWS system, some settings. I've just let that on the default. There is way too many things that you can set, so that I just leave on default. And you can here see in the bottom right of this window that the last time I loaded in the plane was at the southeast of La Palma. Okay, so it was actually La Palma. So I can just restore position and trajectory. That means it will put you back at the exact spot where you left the plane. And then if you enable save, so there is a latest state, which is an auto save. And you can see that also for the runway there are auto saves. And so if you have a crash, just like in the Tolis, you can load back your auto save. So this is always a nice feature. Although it's been a really long time since I had a crash with X-Plane, so I don't want to like knock on wood, as you know. I don't want to say it's never going to happen, but it's a good thing to have. And then if you want, you can always create new airframes, and then these planes will stay where you last landed them if you fly in this carrier mode. But again, if you unclick this restore position and trajectory, then you can just load into any spot and any airport, even in this carrier mode too. But still, all the other switches will be remembered as persistent. So now you can enter the FBO, which is kind of a specialty in this new hot start plane, which means that you enter an office basically when you load the plane in. So this is the HotStar FBO. You can look around with the mouse, and you can move around with the WASD keys and the X keys to crouch. If you have played any games online, then you know how these things work. So there is just an area where you can sit. There are two offices. Basically, you can only do two things here, but there are like two offices here to the right. It's a flight planning room where you can really go in. You can sit down if you want, and then you can open a flight planning window. When you do that, I'm not going to do it now anymore because I've already done it. Then it basically just opens up a browser window, so a Firefox or a Google Chrome or whatever you use, and it takes you to SimBrief. So then you can use SimBrief to really make your flight plan. Of course, you're used to doing it before or just during opening a browser, but it's like integrated. And then if you walk away, then you stand up and then you can walk away. And then here, if you come to the desk, then you can basically do a ground handling request. It's also something you don't have to do here, but if you choose to do here,
Flight support. How can we help you today?
Then you can hear Jenny, I think she's called Jenny. You can give in all your requests. So it's a bit like it's in real life. So you can say, okay, we are Oscar, Oscar, Papa, Sierra, Papa. Our aircraft type is a Challenger 650. Our time of departure, I hope we can maybe in 45 minutes depart. So that's what I'm going to choose for time of departure. This only sets when your passengers are brought to the plane. You will see. So this is not so important. It's also just part of a playful simulation, let's say. Then you can say what kind of fuel you want and which services you want. I will just want the GPU and we will not do de-icing because La Palma it's going to be nice weather, we don't need it and it would take again too much time, but there is actual de-icing simulated. So if you choose de-icing, maybe on the next stream at one point I will show it, or you can find it of course online, there are people streaming with this, then you can really see the de-icing happening. So icing on the surfaces is simulated, and even the de-icing liquid. So you know there are two types of anti-ice or de-ice and anti-ice liquids. There's a green and an orange, and even these are simulated. So it's very nicely done, but it takes way too much time. So I'm just going to ask for a GPU, and we'll ask for a tow just via better pushback. So you can also here already ask for a tow. I'm not gonna do it now. And then you can just, yeah, you need to say that there's going to be a crew of 2 and passengers of 6. So that sets a bit of the weight. And then you just have to sign it. So I'm just going to sign it.
Of course, Captain. I'll get that organized for you right away.
And then it's done. So you have done your request and you can walk to the airplane, which is quite nice. So we will walk to the airplane. And you just walk to the window and then it will put you to the airplane. So now we are La Palma. It's getting evening here too. It's not going to be daylight anymore. And then you are at the plane. So before I go any further, I'm just going to connect to the IVAO network so we can be online. And that's not the right app. Uh, so then we need to log in with Oscar Oscar Papa Sierra Papa. And we are going to be Charlie Lima 60. We'll see if that's available as an MTL. Uh, Probably, it is. Okay. Charlie Lima 60, so it is available, and we will choose maybe Jet Life, which is just a private company. It doesn't matter, it's just for how other people see us. And that's it. So Oscar Oscar Papa Sierra Papa, Viera Challenger 650, the Charlie Lima 60, and Jet Life, and then we can connect, and we are connected. And it is seen that our flight plan is from La Palma to Golf Charlie Romeo Romeo. So that's good. So now we are signed in. And then what can you do here? So you can see that here's the aircraft. It's a very nicely done model, and you can do actually your proper walk around. I'm already just going to open the door, and you do it by clicking here and then rotating the hatch, and then you basically just have to pull down on the door and the door will open up nicely by itself. I'm not gonna go in yet. We'll do a full walk around and then I will go in. So what you want to do in walk around is always remove these covers on the pitot tubes and sensors. So there are 3 on this side. You can always come and with the X key look below and then you can see all the antennae and the gear very nicely. I mean the model is really nice. I'm not going to talk much about that because I would rather do the flying part today. And then there's all these small things you can actually open up. Also not going to deal with that today. There was also here one which I should have covered last time. I didn't. That's all right. Uh, and there are also fueling panels here. So this is where the fueling truck will connect. You will see that the fueling truck will drive up. And this is a fueling panel. I could open it up, but I'm not going to spend time there, which is also inside the airplane. So I can hear already that the GPU has started, so this is here now and connected. So when we go into the plane, ground power will be available. And then of course we check the leading edges, the lights, There are other panels here. This is the exhaust for the APU. This is our call sign, and I have not bothered by changing the flag yet, so let's assume this is a new plane just received from Canada, and I just gave it a new call sign. The call signs are also dynamically specifiable. So in the menu, in the airframe manager, you can do edit appearance, and then you can edit what the call sign should be, what the color of the call sign is, and so on and so on. So you can do very nice changes, and you can personalize the aircraft without having to know Photoshop, for example. Okay, so all of these things are operable. All these small hatches and latches you can open up, and it's a beautiful model. And there is nothing much to say about that. You could have seen lots of other streams. It's really a beautiful aircraft. So you can walk in, walk up, and then you can always have a look here to the back, but maybe we'll come back and have a look here. But just to say, you can walk up to basically any chair and then you can sit down. And then you are seated here, you can look around from here, and if you want to get up, then you can just come up. And then Jean-Claude says that he didn't have those covers on the sensors. Yes, so when you first time load in the aircraft, then the covers are not on. So until you have placed them on your previous flight, for example, they are not going to appear. So if you go in this persistent mode, then let's assume at the end of a flight, you finish a flight, you put on all your pitot covers, then they are going to be the next day when you load in. But I've also noticed that when you just for the first time load in, then none of those covers are there. And hey Bas, thanks also for joining. So you can sit in any chair, and when we fire up the batteries and everything, you will see there are lights and so and so. And also, so this is how you enter the cockpit, and then you can click on a chair, and then you are seated. Then there is a trick. From the point that you are seated, you can switch to X camera if you have X camera. So I have programmed that, and then from there you can just use your normal X camera settings, for example. So I have set that I have the typical wing views, front view from all sides, wing view, front view, a view for the panel, which you will see that we can use during the flight to set the lights and so, and also a view from a seat, and the view from the co-pilot side, because sometimes you have to look down here during the checkup, and it's easier to have a view from the co-pilot side too. And the view for the landing rate monitor, there are phones and the tablet, we'll all see that. But so this is a bit of a trick, that if you want to use the walking mode, then you have to first disable X camera, and then you can go around and walk. And then when you want to be back in the chair, then you can switch back on X camera. So you can toggle X camera if you have this plugin, but this is just one extra thing to know about. Okay, so we will quickly start setting up the plane, and there is a nice checklist included. We will follow that, but of course the checklist only starts working on the MFD when there is power. So it's a bit difficult to follow the checklist of the airplane without having power. So we will do that first. So we assume that the circuit breakers, yes, so the circuit breakers also are all modeled. I'm just going to quickly show this. So there are all these circuit breakers, they are modeled. There is an amazing set of failures you can simulate in this aircraft, like 1400, 1600, I don't even remember. Failures are programmable, but it's not possible to like set up a random failure scenario like in the TOLIS, where you can say that I want random failures to occur at a real life rate. But you can go in and say, okay, I want a random failure for the GPS to occur during this flight. That's possible. But so I'm not gonna set now any failures because it's enough to handle the plane without failures. We don't want to do that today. But so this is...
All right, Captain. Fuel truck is hooked up. Just let me know how much fuel you need.
Okay, so the fuel...
to go tanks full today?
The fuel truck has already arrived, and then we have to say to the fuel truck how much fuel we need. But to know that, I have to first see, first of all, how much fuel we have on the board and how much fuel do I need. So I'm just going to first open up my flight plan. Here I see I need 2646, so let's say 2700 kilograms of fuel. And welcome to Flying Banana 2 to the stream. So we need 2700 kilograms of fuel, but we still don't know how much we have. So we'll just quickly have to power the plane. And to do that, we put the battery on the battery master goes on, and now it's hidden behind this window. So battery master, and we can also put the external power on because we have external APU power available. And then basically we will start the checklist from the point where the flight compartment checklist starts. So we have powered up everything. You can see systems are powering on. And there are other nice features here. So first of all, you can put this away from the way. And you can click out all these panels. I'm going to use these quite often, I think, during the flight because it's sometimes useful to see them in higher resolution. And then if you click back the original positions, then they are closed. You can do that with the flight computers too, and you can even do it with these panels. But to do that, you have to come up to the menu, and then you can say pop out panels, and then there is a forward pedestal, for example, and then this whole thing is popped out, for example. So there is really a lot of things you can customize how you fly the plane. Okay, so we have on board 1810 kilograms of. Oh, no, it's still changing. So we have 1880 kilograms of fuel. 1900. Okay, I will have to wait a bit. It's a bit strange because normally when you load back with this persistent mode, then the fuel also stays as you left it. But maybe because I didn't load back at the airport where I was the first time, that's why the fuel was not remembered. So normally if you land the plane, and I've already experienced this, and then you continue from where you landed, then the fuel stays the same. I don't know why it was not the case now, but okay, you have 1940 liters of fuel. There are two tricks. Okay, 1960, but it's not yet connected, so I don't know why it's going up still. So we have 1960 liters of kilograms of fuel, and we need 2700, 2660, let's say. So we need 700 kilograms of fuel. And then the fueling guy tells you that today the fuel is at 0.8 kilograms per liter. So if you want 700 kilos, then 700 divided by 0.8, and that is, I'm just going to calculate that. So 700 divided by 0.8, that means we need 875 liters of fuel. And then you can say here, pump 875 kilograms of fuel. Let's do a bit more because we'll mess with the APU. So let's do 920. And then you can just click.
All right, I'm gonna go start up the pump.
And then he starts the pump. When he starts the pump, we also need to do something, so it's not going to just happen by itself. The fueling, we also need to open some valves. So now we have a very symmetric fuel, 990 and 990 in the tanks, so we'll open the valves more or less at the same time. And that is, where have I programmed that view? Somewhere I programmed that view. Here, so I'm just gonna show it from its back here at the right behind the first officer. Just program the view there, and then you can turn it on, and then you have to open the valves where you want the fuel to go. So we want to go to the left and right mains, so we are just going to open these, and then they are open, and then you will see that soon the fuel will start flowing. One thing to remember is that the APU uses the right-hand tank, so if you are planning on running the APU for a long time, then you might want a bit more fuel in the right-hand tank to keep things balanced by the time you finish with the APU. So maybe to do this, I'm going to close the left-hand tank for like 10-20 seconds. That will mean that there is going to be a bit more in the right-hand tank. And then I will open back up when there is, let's say, 150 more in the right-hand tank. I'm just going to stay here. It's not exactly at the same time that it starts filling when you open and close these switches. Maybe there is some time delay in closing of the valves. But for example, you can also check this. So there is like a study menu here, and then somewhere you can find the fuel system. And then here you can see how the volumes are changing. So like here you can see that only the right hand tank is changing now, the left hand is not, because there should be a valve somewhere which is closed, which I would have to find where that valve is here. But so that's really amazing how it's done. You can monitor all the things here, read the fuel system. It's amazing. Okay, let's open back up this valve too, because there is now 200 liters more here. And you can also see this now on the right hand, there is much more fuel. We'll operate the APU for quite a long time, so it's not going to be an issue. And if it is, we have still tools to balance the fuel on board. Maybe I'm just going to quickly close the other side now, because there's a bit too much in the right. So the rest should go to the left. And now we have so much in the right that we even got a fuel imbalance coefficient. So that's new there. That's normal because we have such imbalance. But we have 2630 liters, so that's already as much as we need now. So soon the guy will tell us, okay, I fueled your tanks. And I might even ask a bit of extra because now it's really out of balance, but we'll see.
Refueling is complete, Captain. Do you need anything else?
Okay, now he says refueling is complete. And to balance things, we will ask for another 120 liters to the left tank. So another, what, 200 liters? Yeah, that's the 200 liters.
Alright, I'm gonna go start up the pump.
And then that will go to the left tank. It's a very small change in performance, not going to be an issue, hopefully. I'm pretty sure it's not going to be an issue. But okay, let's go further. So now we will use the onboard checklist that's available, and it gives us nice explanations of what needs to be done. So it's actually here, and I've already assigned the key, my spacebar, to progress in the checklist. So we'll see how that goes. So I can just hit spacebar, and then we'll hear what needs to happen. I can also leave. No, I'm not gonna.
Flight compartment checklist.
So you get
DC
these
and DC electrics.
nice tips. Basically, a more detailed description of the checklist, what you need to be doing for the checks. And also this is like a whole complete setup, so they've really modeled one of the operators' actual real-life checklists while doing this plane. There is a lot of steps that you can actually skip if you just want to fly the plane online and you don't want to deal with all the systems. But I'm just going to do these steps because it shows a lot of the usage of the systems and how this kind of flight computer and the displays and everything works. So it's a good introduction. You can see that at the meantime we also got our GPS position, so some maps are initializing. And just to clear these messages, I'm gonna click all over the
Refueling is complete, Captain.
MCDUs.
Do you need anything else?
So now the refueling is complete and we have 1310 in one and 1540 in another. This is good. This is still imbalance, but when we start the APU, we will start using from the right hand, and it's going to be using up enough that this imbalance goes away. And if not, then we will make sure that before we take off, there's going to be good balance. So no, you can go ahead and disconnect.
Just one quick signature on here.
And then you get to know that, okay, we have tanked this many liters, and then that much money that it would cost in real life. So it's also
Here's a
something
copy
that's
for your records.
simulated.
Have a nice day.
And then when you do this, one thing not to forget is to go back to the panel, close all the valves, and then shut off the panel. So all the valves are closed and the panel is shut off, so the fueling is fine now. So we can proceed with the checklist. You want to see these electrical information windows. They are appearing on the first MFD. If you want them, you are a pilot, so you would want to put them on this MFD. And there is a menu down here, not menu, but there are panels down here, 1, 2, 3, 4. So these are for the pilot side and for the co-pilot side panels. And the top half operates the PFD, so the things on the primary flight these days. So this on the left side is a PFD, and this panel operates all the options that you can do there. And then for the MFD, this bigger panel down here, which you can use to operate it. So this is a bit maybe in the simulator an annoying thing, that just by looking here you cannot turn all the knobs and change things. So in the real plane it's much different because your field of view in the real plane is different, and you can just reach down, and when you have flown the plane then you know where these knobs are. But in the simulator you have to like look down, and then the resolution is not so good because you need to see everything. So that's why I think it's nice that you can just click out these panels, and then you just have to make sure you know what you are turning. But okay, so here there are multiple switches, and the logics behind all these panels, you can see there is always a menu. For the PFD and for the MFDs, there is an upper menu and a lower menu. An upper menu displays what the upper menu can change what displays on the upper half of the display, and the lower menu on what's happening on the lower half of the display. And then there is an escape. There are some dials you can use to change what's the menus I'm going to show. And then in the bottom half, there are some pages. You can display the summary page, which just displays some values, an AC electrical page, a DC electrical page, the hydraulic, and the flight control page. That's here. And then you have some radio switches where you can tune the radio up here. So with this switch, the bottom right, let's say in this panel, you can step here on the top between the fields. So for example, you can set your transponder code, their squawk, sorry, and then you can change the state. So you can go from standby to alt or on, but you can do those in the MCDU too. So this is just a different way of doing it if you want to do it here. And then, for example, if I close now this AC panel, then you can just click lower menu, and then you see that there is a menu appearing here. And then if you turn the lower half, so the outer of this dial, then you can switch between the different submenus. And then if you turn the inner dial, then you can change the options. So you can go for the current position, to plan, to TCAS in this view, for example. And then if you want, you can go on to overlays and change what's displayed, for example. I will show that on the other view, but let's start setting up the plane. And then with escape you can go out. But that's how all these panels work. So it's a bit different than other avionics, but it's nice. I think when you get used to it, it's quite okay. It's difficult to get used to it because it's, I think, very different, but it's all right. So you can check your AC electrical first. So now you can see that here the APU is already started. So let's go ahead and start the APU. So we see the same thing, because you can see here the APU is not yet on and it doesn't provide voltage to the system. So you start up your APU. You can, maybe I will make it a bit brighter in the cockpit. And that can be done by multiple ways. And first of all, here there are floodlights you can put on, integrated lights a bit higher, and also floor lights. And there is also here integrated lights, flood lighting, and you don't need lights on the breakers, and here also integrated lighting, flood lighting. And also with these two dials you can set the brightness of the PFD and MFD on the captain side, and this is on the co-pilot side. So now there is a bit more light. You can see a bit more, hopefully. And then you can come here, power the APU. Then you will see that the APU gauge appears. And then you can just start the APU. It's very easy. And then you will see that the RPM and the EGT grows. And then when they appear, when the RPM reaches 100%, then power will start being generated. And then we will see the same connection diagram, let's say, and don't know how it's officially called, as it's in the checklist. If you listen, you can also hear the sound starting, and if we go outside, you can hear that the APU is starting up. And then now the APU is available, and then you have to turn the APU generators on, and then you see here that now the APU is providing power. So now we see the exact same image. And then you could disconnect the external power already and then just use the APU, but we'll keep that on. And then the external power, the external power unit would disappear also in the figure. Okay, so this is one thing we had to do. And the other one is then on the DC. So you can click DC electric, and then you see that the battery voltages are fine, everything is as it should be. So this is all good. And then check DC buses are powered and in with battery chargers operating. We check that and then we can
Nav
go
lights,
further.
logo light.
Nav lights, logo lights. So there is basically you have a co-pilot who will read the checklist items and you will do the checklist items. When we are moving, so after takeoff and before and after landing, there are some things that you can even let the co-pilot do. So like set the bleed air, landing lights, there are some things you can let the co-pilot do, and I will let him do it, and then you will see that he not only reads these actions but also does these actions, which is I think a very nice feature. You can also turn that off and you can do everything yourself, but I think it's quite a lot of things to do on your own. And I see that my webcam already froze again and then just a flying banana tells me, so I'm going to quickly fix that. I don't know why this keeps happening sometimes. It also happened on the first stream for a second, and then I had to restart the camera. I don't know why that is, so just let me know next time it happens. It should be fine now. So we go further. The battery master, these were fine. One thing we didn't do is the fire warning test. So there are also here fire warning tests at the bottom. But these are some things you can do before the first flight, and then you have to look out for the displays on the MFD. Here also a warning test. Then you can even hear it.
Jet pipe overheat.
You can check the failure, and then you can see the failure messages on the MFD. And that was the fire warning test. We have started the APU, so that's fine. And the APU generators were on. AC/DC electrics were checked. Okay, nav lights and logo lights. These are up here. So you go nav lights on. We can put the logo lights on. And then you can see from out, not really on this airport, but the logo lights are now on, and the nav lights, of course, you can see nicely. They are on both sides. And then
Cockpit lights.
cockpit lights, we already set the cockpit lights, so that's good.
Lamp test.
Lamp test, there is a lamp test switch which you can hold in the position 1, and then you see all the switches light up everywhere. You look around, you check, okay, everything lights up, and then you do it also in position 2, and there also everything lights up, so that's good.
Duct monitor.
And the duct monitor, that's here at the bleeder, that goes again to the test. So we actually have to click on the test itself, and then the test happens. And you look again at the display, you hear the warnings. It's quite simple. Then you go for the loop A test, and you can see the loop A test okay, loop B test okay, fine, and then we go back to normal as it was.
FMS database status.
So the FMS is also a bit different than what you're used to, but it's quite simple. The status is on the index page status, and then you can check that if your active database is the current one, it's good. If it was not, like for example the first time when you start up the plane, and hi for Adidas All Star, the first time when you start up the plane and your database is not going to be the correct one, then you have to click the correct database and then click the second left side selector key to put it to the active database, and that's how you activate the database. At the bottom left of the overhead panel, there is a button to better illuminate it. Yes, that's what Jan says. And then that is not this one. Cabin lights on, board lights on, bottom left, I don't know. Okay, the map light also helps. So I don't know if that's what you meant. Bottom left of the overhead panel. They are bright, they are set. This one. Sorry, yes, of course. So the integrated lights on the overhead panel. That's correct. I should have done that then.
Hello, Captain. It's Jenny from HotStart
So you
Flight
can
Support.
actually receive a flight
Your
from the
passengers
FBO,
have arrived.
and the passengers have
Shall I have
arrived.
them brought to the plane?
We are not very ready yet, but yes, please bring the passengers to the airplane.
Understood. They'll be there in a couple of minutes. Anything else?
No, thank you, that's all.
Always a pleasure. Take care.
So this is part of the simulation. So then now we have the correct nav database, so that's good. We can
FMS
go
flight
further.
plan uplink, ATIS.
And now we have to get our flight plan in order. There are multiple ways. You can of course enter your flight plan manually, but there is a SimBrief connection that's included in the plane, so you can use that. I'm going to show how to use that now. In the settings of the plane, of course, you have to first give in your SimBrief login to be able to do that. But then you can do it. So you can go to index, route menu, and flight plan recall. And then you can, if you have already made this flight plan in SimBrief, then you can just give your origin and destination, and you can send this request, and then it will download your route. So I've already done this in SimBrief, like we have seen it here. So we are flying from Golf Charlie Lima Alpha to Golf Charlie Romeo Romeo. So we can say Golf Charlie Lima Alpha to Golf Charlie Romeo Romeo, and then we can say send, and there is a pending request. So that is how the data is being uplinked, our request is being uplinked, and then there is a downloaded flight plan loaded. The trick is the flight plan is then loaded to your secondary flight plan. So you can go to flight plan, you can click secondary flight plan, and then you can see it is loading. Then you can activate it, execute, and now it's the active flight plan. And then if you want to see that, your active flight plan, then for example, what you can do is here you can remove the AC electric display, and for example, you can in the lower menu come and say you want to look at the plan, and then say okay, oops, so the plan, escape to close the menu, and then you can zoom out with the range up here. And we have to, okay, and it's only till LARYS, and you see the Golf Charlie Romeo Romeo, because we go via LARYS, but there is so far no arrival or no departure programmed in. Now there is actually ATC online, so there is no ATC online anymore, so our life just has become easier. So then we just take, but actually there is only one departure and only one arrival that works via LARYS, so it's not like at other bigger airports where there are different kinds of arrivals where you really have to request for clearance to be able to program everything in. We can do this immediately. So I'm just gonna do it, and then you will see immediately how things happen. So basically, we can complete our flight plan, and we do that by first doing to departure arrival. And then if you look at my flight plan, you see
Hello,
that we will do
Captain. How are
the...
you today?
Oh, we are good,
That's
thank you.
great to hear. Well, we're all set back there, so we can get going anytime.
Okay, so everybody has arrived. And when that happens, just before we forget that, maybe we'll quickly stand up and close the doors, because that's something we want to be doing. So we stand up and close the doors. So now it's a bit of a pity maybe that passengers are not drone. That's how it is. We still have our chocks in, so this is something to remember, but I'm not going to remove the chocks, because why to remove the chocks now when we are still standing? But I will ask the ground crew later to remove the chocks. So now we just come back in and maybe put some lights on here before we close everything. So actually there is up here a light which is for boarding lights. I can turn those on. And then there is actually a light. Oh, there should actually be a light. Wait. Okay, boarding lights. Cabin lights, normal boarding lights, on off. Maybe it was on, now it's off. And still off. That's a bit strange. Maybe I have turned off the lights. Ah, no, okay. This needs to be on, the AC/DC utility. All this is all the utility power, and now you have the power, sorry. So the AC/DC utility power needs to be turned on before you can do these things. And now we can close the door, and that is by grabbing the door and pulling it. It's a bit tricky the first time, but you have to keep pulling it. Okay, now it's closed. Then you lower this latch. Then you have to pull on this, and now it's fully closed. It's important not to forget about the clicking this pull, because this is the one that actually pulls in I'm just gonna sit back to my chair. But so that latch or that red pull thing is the one that fully pulls in this latch. So as long as that's not pulled, the latch is still out, and then you cannot really that cannot pressurize the cabin. I think you will get a complaint on the doors. Now, okay, so that we have the passengers on board. There is one thing we can still do is to make life nicer. We can open up this latch, and there is like a curtain, and you can pull that curtain out, and then you cannot see the door anymore. So this is just to make the cabin nicer. You can already see that our route until the route between the two airports is displayed. When we program in the departure and the arrival, then you will see that it actually displays our actual route. So that's going to be nice. One thing what I still need to show here is there is a display unit here, and you can control everything from here. So for example, the lights, you can change the lights that are visible and that are on. So I can put in the gallery, so we are in the gallery now, all the lights to either maximum or low, and then you can see there are glasses here or whatever. And also there are lights for the cabin, and there you can see now I'm standing like this. You can see if I turn all the lights on, then the cabin lights come online. So this is quite nice. Maybe we can put them on low because soon we are going to be leaving, and there is also lower, so the floor accent and seat accent lights, and then we have some nice lights in the cabin. There is also PA briefings that you can play. Uh, then you can hear these briefings. We'll do that maybe before we take off if I don't forget. You can set the temperature. You can check if all the doors are closed. You can still see that the APU door is still open because we have not disconnected the APU. And that's it. That's what you can set here. There is also even a small like door kind of things that you can close here if you don't want to see the passengers or don't want the passengers to come to the cockpit. So that's also something you can do. Okay, let's get going further because time is running. Okay, so we are going to program our flight plan. So we need these two things, and then we are already we've clicked the departure arrival button, and we will program things in. So our departure is from runway 36 in La Palma, and we do the LARYS to Tango departure. LARYS to Tango departure. There is no transition, and you can already see if I zoom in a tiny bit with the range, that it has drawn with the dashed lines what you have programmed, but you still need to execute it for that to become the accepted flight. And it even starts bugging you if you don't execute it to remind you that you need to execute your flight plan. So then you execute it, and then that becomes the accepted flight plan. Okay, so that goes via LARYS, and our arrival is going to be and then you can go back to departure arrival. You can do Golf Charlie Romeo Romeo. That's the active flight plan, secondary flight plan. So we are editing the active one. So we do the arrival for the active flight plan, and we'll do the ILS Zulu to runway 03. Our arrival gonna be the LARYS to Papa, I think. LARYS to Papa, yes, the LARYS to Papa. And we will, now if I zoom in, we can immediately see even without opening up the plan that we'll need to go via moped. So we'll choose via moped, and then that's nice. We can accept and that everything, the whole route is complete. Now if you want to do like in a Boeing or an Airbus, do to like scroll through your whole flight plan, then you can come to this MFD Advanced menu, and then you can click previous waypoint, and then you can step through, or you can go next waypoint and then you can step through. So that's how you step through your whole flight plan in this kind of CDU. And then you can go back to your flight plan or legs, whatever you want to leave this. Two things to check. Well, basically the first thing to check is if you have discontinuities. You will probably have discontinuities because how the system is set up is to set discontinuities between the departure and arrival and everything to make you check those things. So then we can go to the next place, and then you see there is a discontinuity LARYS and the LARYS. So that means that you continue where you have stopped the departure. You can clear the discontinuity either by clicking delete and then clicking the discontinuity. Let's do that. Let's not do that. Or by just putting LARYS over LARYS, and then it's deleted. Then you see there is a discontinuity after Muppet. That you delete since you cannot move this Muppet to the previous page. By you can delete and then click it, and then it recognizes that Muppet comes twice, so it deletes one of the Muppets. It's quite clever in that sense. Okay, so now we have a flight plan without discontinuities, so that's great. What else we have to do? We can already set. It's not per se here in the checklist, but we can maybe finish filling out our CDU. So there are still things you need to do. Is one of the performance. Then you can go to the performance menu, and then you can do first the performance initialization. Our cruise altitude is going to be flight level 300. That's you hit by F300, flight level 300. We have 6 passengers. We have 200 kilograms of cargo. That's how I set. And then if you delete the fuel, then it will put in the sensed fuel here. So that's our weight. And then when this is set, then we can go to the next page. That's not really, you can put your winds in here. And maybe that's possible to do before we go with the performance. Let me just check, because you can also, of course, here you need to have winds here for the legs. You don't have to, but it's best to have. So you can do that by the index. Need to remember a route menu, and yes, so you go to the index, then route menu, and then flight plan wind update. And then you can then send that. And then that again is a data link which will get all the winds for your flight plan. So you'll wait till that's going, you can execute. And there's still a request pending. And if you wait a bit, then the winds will arrive, and then they are loaded into our CDU. This is a longer request. Okay, and it's there, so then we execute again, and then if you go back to the flight plan, legs, leg winds, you can see that all the legs are now with wind values. Very nice. We can go back to the performance menu, VNAV setup, previous page, performance menu, performance initialization, pages. Okay, so here there is no winds in, but it's not really necessary here. Here you can do what's your reserve amount, so we could actually change that based on our flight plan, but I'm gonna leave that now. And then you can go further to the VNAV setup. So our transition altitude in La Palma, for that you actually have to check the airport. Oops. So as you can see, you can also type just in the CDUs. But so we want, okay, so you need to actually close the CD to be able to type in Habitab again. Then you can go to La Palma, and then if you look at the departure, La Palma, departure, LARYS to Tango, then you can see that the transition altitude is 6,000 feet. So then you can, and then it will remind you. So that's the only reason why you want to put in the transition altitude. Then it reminds you. And then this is going to be our target speed for the climb, 250 knots until Mach 0.72. Execute, and then you can go. Yeah, so our cruise is going to be Mach 80, so that's our directed cruise. And then for the descent, you can already also say it's going to be 6,000 feet, I remember. And then execute. And then we go back to the performance page, and we do a performance menu, and we do a takeoff. And then for this, you need some weather information. Of course, you can look in the Avitab, but since you have a data link here, it's more interesting to do via data link. You can go to data link, weather, and request terminal weather. And then you can here give in the airports you are interested in to have the weather for. So that's La Palma, Golf Charlie Lima Alpha, and Lanzarote, where we are going, is Golf Charlie Lima Lima, no, Golf Charlie Romeo Romeo, sorry, Romeo Romeo. And then you can just hit send, and there is now a communication in progress. And then there's going to be a sign when the data has arrived. It's going to happen very, very soon. Okay, now the data is received, we can view it, and then we can see how the weather is in La Palma. So we see that it's 280 degrees, and sorry, the wind is 3 knots from 280 degrees to 280/3, not 80, 2803. The outside temperature is 18 degrees, nice. And the QNH is 1018, 1018. And then it's dry conditioned, the thrust reversers will be armed. You go next, and then you see that if you will take off with the bleeds off, with thrust reversers available on both, then these are the V speeds. And then you can click send, and then the V speeds be populated on your PFD. So with that, that's completed. Then we are good, and let's continue with our checklist. We can leave this weather view on the third flight computer down here because we will use that there, and we can leave the tune here maybe on the second one for now. And I will skip this back, set this back to the current position option, which is via the lower menu, and then you can go to current position and then zoom in a bit more for the departure. And we would also like to have no, not here. We would like to have some radar overlays somewhere. The Terran overlay is actually available here, so that's okay. So this is set. Let's go further with the checklist.
Anti-skid.
So anti-skid switch is set and armed. Anti-skid is armed, and then hold the anti-skid test button and check for the message. And we hold the test, and then here you can see anti-skid in test green, good.
Nose door.
Nose door is closed, is not obscured,
Hydraulic 3A pump.
obscured. Then we put on the hydraulic 3A pump, which is here. And we will need to look at the hydraulics. So for that you can press the hydraulics, and you can see the 3A pump is now active. So the 3A pump is on.
Brake pressure.
Then you can see here the brake pressure is 3000 psi, so that's good.
Parking brake.
Checked. Parking brake. Now to enable the parking brake you have to first push down the brakes just like in real life, and then you can here, enable the parking brake. So pull the parking brake, and then you can let your brakes go. And when this is done, because now we are on our own parking brake power, you can actually ask the ground crew to remove the chocks. So we'll do that before we forget that, because I have this tendency of forgetting things. Not always, but sometimes in the sim. Then you can come here to hand signals, and you can say chocks out. And then now the ground crew will remove the chocks and will give us a thumbs up when that happens. So we'll wait for the thumbs up. And it should be coming any moment. So we got thumbs up, nice. And you can actually, now if you look outside, then you can see that there is no more chocks. So they have really done what we've asked. There is another way of communicating with the ground crew via not only via hand signals, but via ground frequency. And the ground frequency is actually here at the intercom. So you can click that on, turn on the volume, and then switch to the intercom. And then if you click the transmit, then you can talk to the guys. So I can just say, okay, disregard for now. And then here I can also ask them to disconnect the AC power later. Now, for now, just turn back on to the VHF1. And let's go further with the checklist. Okay, so this is what we want to see, the hydraulics. And the parking brakes are now on. The nose door is closed.
Nose door. Hydraulic panel and pumps.
And then we can start checking our hydraulic pumps. And then what we do here is first check the pump 3A pressure, which is okay. Then move the pump 3A switch to off. 3A switch off, and the pump 3B switch to on. Pump 3B to on, and then you can see the 3B pump is also working and providing the pressure, so that's good. And the 3A is indicating in white. Then we do the pump 1B and 2B switches to on, 1B and 2B to on, and they are also on and with pressure. They are under pressure, and we have no hydraulic pump low pressure warning. So that's what we look for. We have no pressure warning, so that's good. So then we can put back all the switches to auto and the pump 3A to on. So all the switches to down position, and then that's good. Now it's normal to see some low pressure warnings because you don't get the pressure on these sides anymore. It's going to drop there a bit. So that's normal, okay?
Electric panel.
Electric panel, we check the electric panel. What else do we need to check? AC power Gen 1 and AC power Gen 2 are off and reset, so that's correct.
AC DC utility switch
Is on.
Start ignition panel.
Start ignition panel is all out, so that's good.
Fuel panel.
And in the fuel panel there is like this smiley test, so we click through all of these switches twice, so click, 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 and then back click, 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 click. And while we do this, we need to look out for changes in the lights. I'm just gonna do quickly the test, and then you can read these tests yourself, how they work. It's not so interesting. So this is something, for example, you could basically skip before a flight. Not a real flight, of course, but in the simulator. So I'm gonna close this down a bit now, and I'm gonna leave it here for the messages. So you'd go 1, and then this goes green, and this also goes green. Then you click this on, then it opens, and you click this on. This also opens, and when you click this on, this should disappear, I think. Yes. Then you click this off, but it's, I mean, on, and they are both on, and then you click this off. And still on, off, that should go on, yes, off, this should stay on, off, and this off, and then they should both go in up. Good. So that's what the test does, but you should read through and study what it does actually.
APU LCV.
The APU LCV needs to go open. It's open, okay.
10th stage isolation valve.
So that's basically the APU bleed. And then the 10th stage isolation valve also goes on.
Packs.
The packs needs to check captain and captain sector set to normal. That's normal, normal. Check RAM air switch is pressed out. It's pressed out and covered. Set temperatures as required. Temperatures are fine as they are for now. And packs on, sorry. So packs need to go on. And then what I just said about the air conditioning panel, we check that. Pressurization panel. This is something you have to do. So this is basically for the landing elevation and so on and so on. We need to set. We check that this is in the middle, and this is at the man rate is at the minimum. These are out and closed. And then what you need to set. Hi Dennis, yes, it looks difficult, but when you do it like a few times, then it gets less difficult. But it's very interesting to do, I think. Okay, so we check the ACAS for no pressure difference. So here the pressure difference is 0, so that means there is no pressurization yet. And the man alt selector is centered, so that's centered, so you can still set the altitude manually up or lower, so the cabin altitude higher and lower. The press con switching is in and out. Can do that, then you see the messages. Okay. Then presses on, check fault light image, then extinguishes. So when you set it in, the fault light should illuminate. And then when you press it out, fault light illuminates and then extinguishes, sorry. Good. Emergency depress switching is pressed out, it's pressed out, and then you have to set the landing field elevation, the pressure at the destination, and the rate. So the rate is just at this sign, so that's fine, we don't have to touch that. Our landing elevation, we have to check that in Avitab, so we go to Romeo Romeo. That's 14 feet altitude, so that's basically 0. And what's the pressure there? It's QNH 1019. Now there is a bit of a trick here, so you have to set that in HTs, in inches of mercury. So if you don't want to do a quick calculation what QNH 1019 in inches of mercury, then you can just come here to your standby instrument, set 1019 and then see it's okay, it says 3009 inches of mercury, so it's a bit of a cheat. 3009 inches of mercury, and then you can set that here. So 30, sorry, the other one, 3009 is more or less there, and then the altitude is 0. Okay, so that's set.
Bleed air panel.
On the bleed air panel, everything looks as it should look, so that's good.
Supplemental ground wing anti-ice panel switch.
Okay, so check anti-ice wing switching is set to off. So there's a supplemental ground wing anti-ice panel switches. That's here, down. Everything is off, so that's good. And then check supplemental ground wing anti-ice system switching is pressed out. So that's all good.
Cal anti-ice switches.
Cal anti-ice switches, left and right switchings are in. And then we can check for the caution messages. Press anti-ice call left and anti-ice call right switchings in. Check for following caution messages are not displayed. But they are not displayed, good. Then we can check them back out.
Anti-ice panel.
Check wing switches set to off, which is off. Check light heat and right heat lights are extinguished. They are extinguished, they would be here. Move windshield wind left and right switches to high, then hold test button. So this goes to high and hold the test button, and then we have those 4 greens come out. That's good. Windshield left and right switches to off and then reset. Oops. Okay, that's normal. Hold test switch in detent. Test in detected, sorry, and then we see ice is detected, so that's the detection test, and then wing, and then it says wing overheat. Good. So that's all good, and these messages also showed up.
Emergency lights.
Emergency lights first go, they are now off, so we see the emergency lights off message here, and then we move that to on first. Then we can see that disappear and say emergency lights on in white, and then we can move that back to armed, so they are armed. Good.
Passenger signs.
Passenger signs, we can put them on auto, and also the seatbelt signs.
ELT.
ELT is armed, so that's fine. I'm just quickly coming
Glare shield panel.
on the glare shield panel. Everything looks good on the looks good on the glare shield panel. I already accidentally pressed, I think, the takeoff. The toga button, that's why this shows toga. So we can clear that out by clicking twice the flight director, okay? Then, where were we? So we check everything here, nothing needs to really be set, but we can already preset things. So since there is still no ATC, then we can already set our cruise altitude, which is going to be 30,000, flight level 300. Okay, so I'm going to close this for a sec. So flight level 300, we can set an initial heading, a runway heading. So we already see the FMS says the runway heading is going to be 004. Heading 004. Then we want to set our initial speed target, which is going to be 200 knots. Going to be the initial speed target. And yes, you don't see the checklist anymore because there is not always that the checklist items are the tips are shown. So the checklist tips are only shown when there is something more complex. So you will see when I go further, these items will be shown. But sometimes when it just says checked or on off, that's only written in the written checklist, and also I have that here open on the iPad, so that's why I'm sometimes looking down, so I don't have to have 2 windows open because then there is too little space I find on my screen. But you will see that they come back up, so don't worry about that, it's gonna be visible. And when you are in the plane, you can of course always look at this too, but for the streaming it's difficult to have everything open. So we set our altitude, uh, our speed, and I think there is nothing else we would need to set here for now. So we can go
Crew and
further.
passenger oxygen.
Crew and passenger oxygen. So you check that here. You hear that there is oxygen. For the passengers, you can check here that we have 1930, I think, some volume, kilogram maybe of liquid oxygen. That sounds a bit too much. That must be something else. Maybe cubic millimeters, some volume. So you have still plenty of oxygen. And also you can do this check actually also on the copilot side. That's here. So the copilot also has oxygen, okay?
DCU warning panel.
DCU warning panel, that's again on the copilot side. We check, there is no warning, so that's good.
CVR.
CVR, you hold the test, so that's the cockpit voice recorder is the CVR, and then the test goes green, then we know it's good. Audio panels are already set. We are on Unicom, there is no ATC, so we are not going to be dealing with that anymore. And I'm just going to say one thing that's maybe still connected to this, that this airplane has the ability to automatically switch to the ILS from the GPS positioning when you are on the ILS. But if you want to make sure that there is no issues during the landing, then you can also preset your ILS frequency on the preset nav. So how this works in this airplane is that you can switch between two navigational sources. It's like in the G1000, if you to switch the source switch, I think it's the source button or CRS button, I don't remember exactly, but then you can switch between navigational sources, and these sources can be FMS1, FMS2, FMS3, so these are the flight computers, and of course it can be a VOR1 or a NEV1 or a NEV2, so those are the frequencies. So what's safe to do is, I think I find it the most safe to do is to do the preset nav to VOR1, and then this is at the lower panel, so this you can do with this dial. Sorry, no, we are on the we are on the PFD now, so we are on this panel. And then you can switch here. So you see, you can set your source, and with the outer, you can switch between the sources, and with the inner, you can say FMS2, VR2, FMS3, VOR1. So you can go for VOR1, for example, and then you can immediately set up your ILS for Lanzarote. So we'll do the ILS Zulu. Then you can do approach ILS Zulu, and then you can check. Okay, our course is 031. So then you come, you go to the course, and then you set 031 for the course. 031, and our frequency was 1091, so that's the NEV1. So then you want to go to the tune page. This is the NEV1 frequency, and you want to set that to the 1091. So you do 109.1 decimal 1 to the NAV1, and then you can see that now it says it's a localizer with a course 031 and a frequency of 109.1. This is really like a safety backup option should your plane for some reason not automatically switch. It will automatically switch when you arm the approach, but it can happen that it doesn't. So then it's nice to have this as a backup, because then you can just come and hit nav source, this button, because that flips the nav source. Now you see it's a localizer, and the preset is the FMS. Then if you hit again, then you go back to basically the GPS, so that's how you know that the pink arrows is the GPS, and then you go back to the source like that. But like this, you are completely prepared for the approach. Nothing can go wrong basically, so this is a nice thing. Our QNH on La Palma was just quickly, I will put this back to the legs. And what was our QNH again on La Palma was 1018. So let's check that. Let's set that too. That was not yet set here. That's up here. So 1018. And also on the standby instrument. Ooh, this is huge when you click it up. Then it's 1018. Okay, so this is all set. And then we can now really go further with the checklist.
Audio panels.
So the audio panels are set, so that's why I said that's from the frequencies I reminded myself that that's what I wanted to do. So the frequency audio panels is set.
SPS system.
SPS system. So this is something that's a bit difficult to test because you have to hold a lot of buttons at the same time. But I will show what it's mainly about. So this is a stall protection system. This in real life does what it does in real life is that if you come in a stall situation, it will not let you pull back on the stick. It will push the stick forward so to recover from the stall. And this is the system that you can test here. And there is a lot of tests here that you can go through. Maybe I will skip this because it's really not interesting. If you go step by step, then you can see what happens. It's really just a test that is required. Also, this sign, this sun sign, I don't know, or light sign next to the checklist items means that this is something you only have to do for the first flight of the day. Of course, in the simulator, chances are good that you'll have a lot of first flights of the day, but all these very detailed things here in this test, there is nothing that you need to set. Everything will stay as it is for the flight. So there is not like the test here where you had to put on the packs or whatever. So that's not necessary change for the flight. So that's why I'm going to skip this.
Integrated standby instrument.
The integrated standby instrument is set.
Clock.
The clock is fine. Everything is reset for now.
EFIS, ICAS.
Everything as expected for now. Nothing unexpected that you would.
Main landing gear bay overheat.
That's also a test, I think. Main landing gear bay overheat. Wait. That you need to check. There is no overheat here. I think that was a check somewhere actually. Main landing, yeah, that's here. Okay, so this is an overheat test, and then you can see the message and the warning. And overheat failure is if you have the sensor failure. So that's also checked.
Warning switches.
The TOS warning switches. You can just hold test, and then you will see that it's a long test sequence. So you can here actually see that all the tests start going. So this takes a while. You could monitor what's happening. Not very interesting, to be honest. Of course, very important in real life.
Pitch and roll disconnects.
Pitch and roll disconnects. They are all stowed, so that's good.
Ground spoilers.
Ground spoilers are down. Sorry, an auto here. So this needs to be an auto. That's good.
Thrust reversers.
Thrust reversers. Now here we can check our thrust reversers. And for that I have to unfortunately move this. Okay, they are moving. And here they are okay, and they have to be armed, right? Thrust reversers checked and then armed. I will pull these back in, and then thrust reversers go armed. That's good. Then the thrust reversers need to be on shut-off position. That's good. And actually you also need to check the full motion. So I check it moves good, and you can go back. And then engine speed switches need to be on. Engine speed switches, yeah, these are here, so they are on. Good.
Thrust levers.
That we
Engine
did.
speed switches.
Engine speed switches
Engine
are on.
vibration check.
Engine vibration check. So here, that's a vibration check for the engine. It's here, you hold test, then you can see that things spool up. There is a vibration test. We can see the display only goes to 3.5 fan vibration, and then it stops. Good.
Oral warning.
Oral warning switch tests. Oh, sorry, that's a lamp test. Oral warning. And then you can hear the oral warning, hopefully. And there is a different warning too. And you can stop the warning test by quickly moving to 1 and then 2, and then the test is stopped.
Smoke detector.
Smoke detector tests. They are smoke detector here. Then you can see smoke detected
Smoke.
messages. So that's good.
Trims. Mock trim.
Okay, so this is a bit to check if all the trims work on both sides. We'll go through this because this is quite important. So first you press the stabilizer trim channel 1 switch, so that's down here, and the Mac trim switching, that's here, that goes in. And then check for trim operation clacker in both directions with both pilot and co-pilot trim switches. We can also only do that on the co-pilot side, but it is operational, so that's good. Go back to like 5.8ish. Okay, and then stabilizer channel 2 in op, that's there. Okay, so then press the co-pilot stabilizer trim disconnection button, which is here. So this small red button, we check that, and then you see the step trim and Mac trim messages here. That's good. Then we do the same with channel 2, and then the Mac trim switch, and we do the same on the pilot side. And then disconnect, and Mac trim strap trim again appears. Good. And then press both the step trim channel 1 channel 2 in, and then there is no step trim message. Good. Press Mac trim switching in, and then the first caution message will disappear. It disappeared, very good. And then set pitch trim as required for takeoff. I already said that it's more or less in the middle of the green. Great. Check full movement of aileron and rudder trim and ensure both are reset to neutral. So here you can see the movements of the trims, and you can also see them displayed here. So if I go with the aileron trim, then it gets trimmed, and you want to set that more or less horizontal, and also the rudder trim is centered. So that's
Yaw
set.
dampers.
Yaw damper 1 and 2 buttons go in, and that's good. And then caution message is not displayed. There is no yaw damper caution message displayed. Check.
Reversionary inhibit switches.
Reversionary inhibit switches, they should be set to normal. They are down here. They would be used to, for example, if one of your displays dies, then you can transfer what it would be displayed on one display to the other. And KT, thank you for joining to the stream. Glad to see that you like it. I hope other people also find it interesting and informative. So that's done, and the CDO tune inhibit and MFD tune inhibit switching are pressed out. So these are out and they are pressed out. So that's checked.
IRS.
The IRs are all aligned, so that's good.
CPDLC.
The IRS alignment on this plane is automatic, so as soon as you turn on the battery, IRS starts aligning, and as soon as we got actually our positions, that was aligned. What was IRS CPDLC logon? We don't use a CPDLC, so we don't do that.
TCAS.
TCAS test should be in the TCAS, the tune ATC test. So we go to the tune, and then ATC and test. Whenever I tune ATC. Okay, so that was the test. I find it this is a bit strange, because normally I think there should be like a test option here and not just go through all of them, but maybe I'm incorrect. So I just went through all the modes. All the modes were operational, so I assume that this is working too. Since there is no ATC still on the IVAO, we don't need a clearance, but we have obtained the ATIS. This needs to be closed. But we have
ATIS
obtained our ATIS and clearance.
FMS flight plan.
FMS
Wind update. Perf.
FMS flight and wind update and perf is all programmed, so we have already done that. So we have the takeoff settings all down here. The thrust is limited to 90.7 and 1, and we'll go bleeds off. Takeoff data is set. We have our V speeds,
avionics and charts.
avionics and charts are set. This is in rows mode. No, this should go into rows mode. So for example, now you want to put the PFD into rows mode, and that you do by clicking on the menu, and then you can set your format to be rows, and that's good for us. We are zoomed in. The MFD one has the ACAS and the current position. MFD2 could have the summary, so you could have here click summary for the takeoff. But I'm already going to remove that because I prefer to have, well, we can click summary, that's okay. And current position mode and the PFD2 to rows mode. So here you can again click menu. It's difficult to see, but then you can come down format and you put it in rows mode. Okay. Maybe quickly here I will show some interesting things. How you can set other things on this. I will sit in the co-pilot seat to be able to show it easier. So now you have the summary. You can remove the summary. You can also remove, you can put in charts here, for example. And since we have already set up our charts, it knows, oops, I should not have moved this. It knows that we are in La Palma, and you can see it's geolocalized, and you can even, with the right mouse, roll through the charts or zoom in with the mouse wheel, which you can of course do here too. So there are actually like buttons here to roll, but it's much easier to just interact with the display itself. But there is also a menu here, so this is the lower portion of the screen actually, so it's the lower menu, and then here you can select different charts already. So we can already select the departure chart because I think that's more useful to see, and then we have the departure chart. I will show some quick tricks later on with this, but you can remove the charts. And then, for example, in the top, you can say nothing is displayed, and then you get a bigger window. Because now at the top, you see the checklist. So you click here the upper menu, then you can see that you can choose things what to be displayed in the upper half. And if you say, for example, you can put summary, AC, and so all these things can also come up here. But you can say off, and then you get a bigger map. And I like that big map here, actually. Then you can escape. And if you want to save, for example, that this state where you see a big map, you want to save that, then you can hold the memory 1 button for some time, and then it should tell you stored. So now it's store complete. Then you can put something else in, escape, and then if you hit memory 1, then you can get back immediately what you stored there. So that's a nice way of setting up your favorite screens, and you don't have to go into the menus every time you want to set up something, but you can store things well. So there's a question, how's my FPS? The FPS right now is very high because we are on the Canary Islands and there is not much scenery, of course, in the Canaries. But the FPS I think is more or less the same as with the Q400 now. It's quite fine. It's very well balanced because they have written the systems to run on multiple cores of your computer. So I think FPS wise it's a good plane, but it's difficult to tell. So it's, of course, on the Canaries everything has good FPS, but I think it's the same kind of range where you would expect a bigger plane to be. It's definitely not super heavy on FPS or something. And you see that I already have synthetic vision on and everything, so it's alright. Here maybe on the second screen we can zoom out a bit more, just for fun. Where is the range? Out. Okay. And then when we zoom out, you can see there is a top of climb there forecast, and there is also, if we zoom out even more, a top of descent. So we'll have some cruise. And you can set everything what to be displayed. So you can set the map to be displayed, even the what are these? The different areas in the air. We cannot get the words out right now, but you can set everything. So this is nice. Charts are selected, so we can actually put out the departure chart and go further. Flight instrument check. We have done everything is set.
Departure briefing.
You would do a departure briefing now here. I'm not going to do a full departure briefing, but we'll follow our departure turn after 600 feet above the airfield to the right, and then we'll intercept basically a direction from the NDB towards 1 euro. So that's how the departure is. Sorry.
Emergency procedures. Pins,
Normally we know
covers,
those
chocks.
pins, covers, chucks are already removed.
Cabin lights, water heaters, master seat.
Cabin lights are set. I can lower a bit. I don't need this map light anymore. Let's say there's enough lights here. And we also don't really need the lights at our feet, so we can turn that off if you want. Where is that? There is down here. And the floor lights we don't need. Off. Okay.
Flight compartment checklist complete.
Flight compartment
Engine start
checklist is
checklist
complete.
next.
Okay, engine start checklist is next. So we'll first get our pushback truck. And we'll disconnect the GPU first. So we'll ask here, go to the ground crew
Cockpit.
and see, disconnect the AC ground power unit. Yes.
Roger.
And we can also come off the external
Ground to
power.
cockpit. AC ground power is disconnected and clear.
Okay, so that's disconnected. And then that's gonna be all. So we can come back to VHF1, turn this off. Just visually check, okay, we are clear. There is nothing else, chocks are removed, all doors are closed. And to confirm all doors are closed, we can still stand back up and come here to this display and check, and then here you can see all doors are green, and you can also see here everything is closed. Okay, then we can go back to our seat and continue with the engine start checklist, but I will ask better pushback to come first. Oops, better pushback with the delete. You delete the segment, and I'm going to ask for a long pushback to the taxiway. So normally you would start the engines and roll out of a typical parking spot where these planes are, but on La Palma there is no such spot, so we have to ask for pushback.
Ground to cockpit. Can acknowledge. Coming through the menu when you are ready.
I'm actually ready, so I think... Yes, I'm ready. So let's call the better pushback guy.
Ground to cockpit. Tau is driving up.
And then we can start with the checklist for the pushback.
Engine start checklist.
So engine doors are closed and there is no error messages.
Parking brake and pressure.
Parking brake is set, pressure is checked.
Fuel quantity and balance.
So this is done by the first officer. That's why you could hear that even an action happened before I've done anything. So he did these checks. Okay, now our better pushback is coming. Fuel quantity is now balanced, so they are within 182 kilograms of each other. That's why you see them green. They were yellow where they were not balanced anymore. So that's checked. Beacon lights can go on. So up here, beacon lights go on.
Fuel boost pumps.
Fuel boost pumps go on.
Okay, all doors and hatches are closed. Ready to connect.
On. Ignition.
Ignition and armed.
Engine 2 start.
Okay, we'll only start that when we will start being pulled. So we'll wait for that.
Strap and adapter in position. Release parking brake when ready to start pushback.
Okay, we'll release the parking brake now. So we first have to push on the brakes and then release the parking brake, which is down here. And then let the parking brake go. And now our guy will start the pushback. So he connects the wheel, raises the wheel, and then the pushback will start.
Starting pushback, and you may start engines.
Okay, so we can start the engines. And that is happening by press and hold the right engine start button. So you press and hold until this goes on. And then we can... Okay, then you can see N2 rising when it's above 20%. Then we introduce fuel to the system. Then N1 starts rising, ITT rising. So that the right hand engine starts going. So that's good. Press right throttle lever forward with the red. That's done.
Fuel system.
Engine 1 is good. Press fuel boost pump switchings out. For in-upper fuel boost pump switchings. That's good. Check for the caution message is good. Left fuel, low fuel pressure, that's also okay. Check.
Engine 1 start.
Okay, so we can start engine 1. That's the same as we did engine 2. So press and hold until start is on. N2 rising. When it's at 20%, we can introduce fuel. Then N1 rising, ITT rising. That is also going well. This is fine. And don't bother with this fail, it's because I accidentally pressed the go around earlier. That will be cleared up very soon.
Engine start checklist complete.
Engine start
After
checklist
start
complete.
checklist, next.
After start checklist is next. Good. We'll do that when we are done with the pushback, because I need to arm
Operation complete. Set parking brake.
our nose steer. So we'll set our parking brake, so again press on the brake and then...
Disconnecting tow. Stand by.
Okay, what we can already do when he disconnects the tow is to arm our nose wheel steering before we start rolling anywhere. Because otherwise, if we don't arm our nose wheel steering, we will not be able to steer our plane. This is something that is done automatically, for example, in an Airbus. There is a question from Bo, if I pronounce correctly, if this plane or the Q4XP. That's a very difficult question, because they are...
Tow is disconnected and bypass pin has been removed. Hand signal on the left. We'll see you next time and have a safe flight.
Because they are very different planes. Okay, before we continue further, we'll look at our nose wheel. It's straight now, so we can arm our nose wheel steering and don't bother by this track that tries to drive through us. So nose wheel steering can go armed. And normally to the left there is our guy giving us the thumbs up that we can taxi, so that's okay. So nose wheel steering is armed, so that was something important.
After start checklist.
After start checklist.
Generator 1 and 2.
Generator 1 and 2 switches go on.
On, checked AC and DC.
And
Ignition.
Okay, this looks good. This good. Generator 1, generator 2 is on. Ignition can disarm.
Disarmed. Packs. On. 14th stage.
Packs on. The packs are on now. Okay. 14th stage isolation valve is open. And left right switch is in.
Open. Cowl anti-ice.
We don't need, but we will make these checks.
On, check 45 seconds.
And
Flight
we'll
controls.
check the 45 seconds. And then the flight control check. So here you can click on the flight. And then do the normal full left, full right, aft, forward, and your rudders, right and left. So that's checked.
Ground spoilers.
Ground spoilers, so they are here, but I also put them in my mixture lever, so I can move that. So yeah, there was a quick question about the Q4XP or this one. I was going to say about something about that. So they are very different planes. I think if you just want to casually fly around but still have a great experience, then it's definitely the Q4XP, because it's simpler. It's a beautiful model. The plane is beautiful. It flies very nicely. I feel like the flight model is great. There are still some improvements coming at the Q4XP. For example, the missing TCAS and the terror radar. And some systems still have some minor issues, but if you are not really into the numbers, you will not notice them. So it's not like you cannot fly the plane because of them. So there is like a small issue in the model of the pressurization system. But if you don't look at the dials, you will never notice this issue. or the oil temperatures can be sometimes a bit off. But if again, if you don't know in real life what those oil temperatures should be, you will never notice this. But to just fly around, it's a beautiful plane. I really like the Q4XP. System-wise, this plane, the Challenger 650, is probably the best plane for XP11 ever. It's amazing what it has. I mean, there are menus here where you can, for example, check your GPS position. So the GPS satellites are really modeled, and your GPS reception is calculated from these satellites. You don't have this kind of simulation anywhere. You can check your current atmosphere, which comes of course from X-Plane, but you get all the atmospheric data from this. Or you can look at your engines, and then you see your left engine state, and you can look at any kind of parameter. So this is really the definition of a study level aircraft. But to fly this, it takes much more time also. Even if you skip all the checklist items that you can skip before a flight, so it's more complex. But if you're into complex flight simulation, then I think it's this plane. So it's definitely worth the price if you are very much interested. Okay, let's go for further. So ground spoilers, we can first move them from auto to disarm. Ground spoiler auto to disarm. Check no deployment of spoilers on flight control synoptic page. No deployment, that's good. Move ground spoiler switches from disarm to arm. And then you see that they move. That's good. And then it goes back to auto, and you should see them go back. Okay,
Light
that's
spoilers.
checked. Spoilers. Here we can check how they go when you manually extend them, and if you go to half, how the extension is. So that's all good.
Cal
And
anti-ice.
we don't need the flight controls anymore. Cal anti-ice after 45 seconds is on. Cal anti-ice on.
Supplemental ground wing anti-ice.
Test.
Test on.
Fuel imbalance is within 182. Check.
Trims.
Trims are set.
No steer.
No steer is armed. I think
Armed.
yes.
APR.
APR test. Check for APR indication. N1. Hold engine control. APR test 1. Engine control. APR test 1. APR test 1 okay, and then engine APR test 2, APR 2 test okay, comes up on the display, and then disappears.
ADG unit.
ADG auto deployment control unit switch to unit. Oh, where was that? ADG. Yeah, that's here at the bottom. ADG control unit goes to unit test light, appears and then automatically disappears after 2 seconds. Okay,
Supplemental
checked.
ground wing anti-ice.
That's good. After 2 minutes, test okay. Press test switch out, and then this can be zeroed out.
Cal anti-ice.
Cal anti-ice will not need them because there is no icing
Wing
conditions.
anti-ice.
Wing anti-ice goes to normal.
14-stage isolation valve.
Isolation valve goes open, indicates open and then out, and extinguishes. Checked.
Wing anti-ice.
The message is there. Wing anti-ice on, message is there. They illuminate yellow and 2, good. Move anti-ice wing switch to standby and check the lights remain illuminated.
Checked. Off.
And then
ATS.
go off. Yes, it goes a bit fast in the checklist here. But okay, ATS display show N1TO, and that's going to happen as soon as I switch the press the go around switch. No, it says yes. I'm going to clear that again. Flight director on off, and then to clear that failure here, you can either come and press the disconnect button at the front of your throttle, which is like a very tricky place to get. So here is a button. I don't know how visible it is. Here is a button, but I coded that to my joystick, so you press that, and then it's N1TO.
ATC TCAS.
So that's good. ATC and TCAS is fine for now. They can still stay standby or it can go on. But for now we'll keep it standby, and we want to see the legs here. There is still no ATC on Gran Canaria, on La Palma, no. No ATC on IVAO. So that's ATC and TCAS is set. We can already do it to TA array if you want,
TARA.
because that's what he
After
wants to
start
hear.
checklist complete.
After start checklist is
Taxi
complete.
checklist next.
Okay, then taxi lights go on.
Taxi checklist. Taxi lights. On. Wing and cowl anti-ice.
As required, we don't need it, so check.
Brakes and steering.
Brakes and steering can be checked if you start rolling, and yeah, disregard this guy who is going to roll into us. But so I release the parking brake, we start rolling on idle very easily, and then you press your brakes. Brake check brakes are available, so that's
Reverse
checked.
thrust.
Reverse thrust, move left, yeah, so reverse thrust, we are going to do that. Check, the reverse comes out, then stow it back, and then again you have this fail, but then you will have to again click this disconnect button on the throttles, and then you can come back to N1 TO.
If taxiing the de-ice, pause checklist here until a paper de-ice checklist is complete.
Okay, we are not
Flaps.
taxing with de-ice.
20.
Flaps 20.
Altimeters. Set and cross-checked. Radar weather.
So these are done by the
Takeoff briefing.
the first officer. That's why I don't have to do anything, but these are done. So okay, takeoff briefing is done.
Taxi checklist complete.
Next
Before
checklist
takeoff
is
checklist
complete. Next going to be the before takeoff checklist, which we'll do at the holding point. So now it's just a normal taxiing, finally, after a lot of time. That was already a lot of time. But we are taxiing. So soon things will really start happening. There is one more thing we didn't see yet. There is a HUD, which you can pull down, and then here you can change the brightness of the HUD. We'll play with that during the flight. And it's like really a well simulated HUD. So if you move around, then you can see that the HUD display still stays as it would in real life, aligned with your direction and everything. Okay, we are at the holding point alpha. We'll turn up and then do our departure checklist, before departure checklist. And just for the feels, we'll also do something else. So we slow down here. Okay, brakes on. Can look out the wing, flaps are down. But we'll jump up here to the display and play the takeoff message.
Ladies and gentlemen, if we may please,
but I don't really want to listen to this, so I'm just going to close the guys to their compartment, and then we don't have to listen to them. Okay, we maybe need a bit less lights for takeoff, so we can, maybe the floodlights can be turned down a bit. We don't need that. And that's so bright in here because the airport lights are still shining through, as Good explained. Does that always. Okay, so we can do our departure checklist.
Before takeoff checklist. Passenger signs.
Passenger signs
Advised on.
are advised on.
Anti-collision lights.
So this is something that
on.
the
Roads. On. Windshield heat.
the first officer
on.
does this.
Wing and
You can
cowl
turn this off
anti-ice.
if you don't want it, but you can have it that the first officer does it. We were at wing cowl anti-ice, so if you want you can check where we are by removing the charts and bring this up. Wing and cowl anti-ice, we don't need it. It's very warm, so let's check.
Continuous ignition.
He does that
On.
itself.
ATC TCAS.
We are on TRA.
Supplemental ground wing anti-ice panel. Checked. CAS. Takeoff config OK.
And then we can look takeoff config OK. And why is takeoff config? Of course, the brakes. And now takeoff config OK. So you need to release the brakes, otherwise takeoff config is not gonna be OK.
Landing, pulse, recog lights.
He turns those on too.
On. Before takeoff checklist complete. After takeoff checklist next.
Great, so we are done with the before takeoff checklist. We can remove this, and if you remember, we can just click memory 1 because we stored that, and then we can have a nice overview of our plan. There is nobody near us, so we are not even going to say we are going to take off. We are just gonna go. So TAR is already on. We are just going to line up runway 36. So we have to first backtrack on the runway, and then we will line up and depart. For now I will leave the sounds on, but then after departure we'll put our headset on, and then you will see that's also nicely simulated. So the noise cancellation headsets are also simulated, which is always nice, I find. And the flight timer will start automatically when we get airborne. Ah, so already almost 2 hours with all the setup, but from here everything goes fast. Of course, when you don't have to explain everything, then I think you can do it 45 minutes, but still that's a long setup. So to come back to the example of the Q400, you can set that up easily in, I don't know, 15 minutes. If you use quick load, even faster. When I fly the tallest Airbus, that usually takes me 20-25 minutes to set up if I go through all the checklists, everything. But yeah, this will definitely take longer, but that's part of the realism, I guess. Okay, we can turn a bit steeper. We're not a big plane anymore. I mean, not a big plane to start with. And then align with the center line and step on the brakes a bit. And then we can take off. So I call takeoff. And then, so it has auto throttle. You can either, so now we have our takeoff power set. That's at N190.7. If I put the perf page up here, you can see the active is the takeoff thrust limit. And here I want the legs. So what you can do is either press the ATS, which is the auto throttle system, or you just advance the throttle, and when it goes beyond like 70%, then the ATS activates. And that's what we'll do now. So I'm just going to advance the throttle. I'm already going to release the brakes. The throttle is advancing. And then when Theo... Okay, no. Okay, I don't know why I had to click that. Okay, but V1, rotate. Okay, positive rate, gear up. And we can also arm the nav mode. And the speed mode. And then we can start our turn to the right, follow the flight. We can also enable the autopilot. Okay, so autopilot is on. We turn on our speed to 200. That will lower the nose a bit. Gear is up, and then we can go with a checklist.
After takeoff checklist.
Landing gear is up.
Up. Flaps.
We are high enough for flaps to go to 0, so we put the flaps up. And also let's
0.
speed up
Thruster
to 250.
Off. Ignition. Off. Pressurization. Checked. PAX transition.
And then you can see that he does these things. So this checklist is done by the co-pilot.
Completed. N1.
Here we are going to
Climb set.
cross
APU
the
generator.
transition altitude, then you see that it
Off.
starts blinking.
APU.
Then we can go to barrow standard.
Shut down. Passenger signs.
Passenger signs can go to auto, so that's something I can do. We can make it a bit lighter here, just so that we see something in the stream. So passenger sirens can go to auto. Check.
CAS.
And the approach is already armed, so that's fine. Otherwise, the CAS is clear.
After takeoff, checklist complete.
So after takeoff, checklist is complete. We are good. And then, like I said, I'm just gonna click memo 1 and then we see the map. We are crossing flight level 100, so we can lower our climb because it's quite uncomfortable to have a pitch up to more than 10 degrees for the passengers, and we do that by speeding up to 280 knots. And when you speed up, then you have to of course pitch down with the same power, and that's gonna be more comfortable for the passengers. We have not really looked outside because everything was happening very fast. But yeah, there is not much to see right now. So we can also put on our headset and then there is less noise. And since we passed through 10,000 flight level 100, we can also turn off our landing lights. Landing lights are off. And now there is no extra lights outside, so that's good. And there was a question, is the VNAV similar to the 737 or A320? So the VNAV is different from both. I don't know if you have played with the CJ4 in the Microsoft Flight Simulator 2020, because that's very similar. I'm going to explain how it works, but also the avionics suite is very similar to that. So if somebody is familiar with the CJ4, preferably the working title mod in the Microsoft Flight Simulator, then the whole way how this plane works, the avionics will be very, very familiar. I'm going to explain that, but first I want to go out to the passenger section and show you how the map works at this time of the flight. So of course now it's also simulates that to come here I had to remove the headset because the headset is not long enough so that you hear more. And then we can just sit down here and then you can see that the whole actual flight plan is shown on the display. Like really how we will go. The actual flight plan from the flight computer is displayed. I think it's really, really nice. So even the proper arrival and how we go from the arrival to the approach, it's displayed here. Then you see what's the remaining distance, remaining flight time 47 minutes, and all the values that would be displayed in a real plane. I find this is really, really nicely done. And of course at the back there is a toilet too, and there can be no stream without showing you the toilet, I guess. So there is a toilet here where you can even sit down. The lights are not on here because I didn't turn the lights on. But okay. You just come sit back and continue the flight. What was I'm going to talk about? So you are familiar with the CJ4, perfect. So that's exactly how it works. That's how the VNAV works. So for the VNAV you can set at the performance init, and then you can go VNAV setup. And if you go next page, then you can here set what the flight path angle you want for your VNAV. So basically the VNAV will try to fly a 3-degree descent path, but it will make sure that it doesn't, sometimes it might have to fly less steep to meet constraints. So for example, if you look into the flight plan here, sorry, the legs here, you can see that here is a constraint of 5,000 or above. So it will always make sure that it basically reprojects this 3-degree slope from the final approach fix, and as long as this 3-degree slope is within the constraints, then it will accept that. If, for example, the 3-degree slope would be too high, then it will make it less steep. This can happen on some approaches. This is a very simple flight when this is not going to happen, but this can happen. But so for example in the Airbus you can see your altitudes, how they are projected to be over the whole flight, over every waypoint, and also for the descent. Here this is done a bit differently. Here you can actually see the predictions too, but it's done differently. And also for the takeoff, your profile will only depend on what speed and what performance you are flying with, of course. But so it works a bit differently. Okay, what's our next checklist actually? So we have already done an after takeoff checklist. I think the next one is the descent checklist. Okay, so we don't have to do that yet. We'll do that when we are like 50 miles from the top of descent. And I'm just going to quickly drink something. So we'll do that when we are 50 miles from the top of descent. You can see we are climbing very fast. Normally the Tenerife should be front right, but it's very dark outside, so not much that we can see here. But the island of Tenerife is somewhere there in the darkness. Okay, there actually you can see some lights down there, but not the volcano unfortunately. But here on the synthetic vision you can see the volcano itself too. Okay, and when we reach the cruise altitude we'll still speed up a bit. So you can also here monitor that the cabin altitude is now 3,800 feet. The rate of the pressure change in the cabin is 300 feet per minute. The pressure difference is 8 hectopascal. No, that doesn't seem right. 8 bars, I think. 8 bars probably. Temperature in the cabin is 23 degrees and there is still plenty of oxygen available. So that is all good. What we can do in the meantime still, we can set our chart, for example, and that was the sign that we are 1,000 feet from the target altitude. But here we can also go charts, lower map, and already go to the approach chart. That's what I want to see. And there is like a cool feature here. I already set that like that. That you can see this approach chart is a bit like cut into parts. So you see the map part here on the top section, and then select the part of the chart on the bottom. And you can change what selected part you see here on the bottom. So you can always see the map itself, but by scrolling through here, you can change between looking at the briefing, the profile, or the minimums. And also with the inner, you can actually go between the different charts. So this is the arrival airport chart, this is the approach chart, and this is the arrival chart. And again here you can go left and right, holding the right mouse button, which is a really nice feature. But okay, so this, to get the split view, you can do that in the lower menu. And then just down here at the very bottom there is a chart dimming day night, and we can also put a night chart. It's nicer now. And this is approach chart view, can be normal or split. So the normal is when you have the full chart and then you can scroll through to look at parts you want, but it's much better to have the split mode because then you can always see the chart and then just change between briefing, profile, and minimums to look at. So I think that's a nice feature. Okay, we can start zooming in also here, the range, so we only see the relevant part of the flight. We are going to go overhead the airport of Tenerife Norte. And the CPDLC, if it works with the IVAO, I actually don't know, because I've never used the CPDLC itself. So that's a good question. I cannot answer that. Somebody else maybe have already used it, but I've never used it. So I unfortunately cannot answer that question. Other features I wanted to show, maybe here is what things you can put in the map here. So for example, I'm also gonna zoom out here a tiny bit, and then show that, for example, here it's not super well visible, but like here I'm displaying the times. So if ATC asks me at what time I expect to be at a waypoint, I can just read the times off this map, but I'm not displaying on this map the altitude and the speed limits. But on the other map, so on the pilot side, I don't display the map, or the times, I only display the altitude limits and the speed limits. So you can see that we'll have to slow down to 220 knots, for example, by the LTF 41. But this is how I like to organize things. But you can set everything you want to display just by going to the menu, which is now here the upper menu. And then, sorry, no, because now only the lower part is displayed. So it's the lower menu, and then you can go to map symbols. And then you can here select what you want. So if this is geopolitical, is basically the map. So you can turn that off, and then you don't see the map. Turn it on, then you see the map. The airspace is the pink ones. This can be useful because you can know also on IVAO if you go from one airspace to another that you might expect to change frequencies. So you can set everything via these menus. They are very useful. Now we are at cruise, and actually our cruise speed should be Mach 8.0. But well, we can still speed up a bit. Sorry. And there, that's we can turn up the speed. So the cruise and the climb is now the same power, so there is no difference there. But we can go via the speed to Mach 8.0. If you click on the speed, then you will display the Mach, and then we can turn up 8.0, and then we will slowly speed up. So you can see there is still some power we can play with. Now the auto throttle system spools up, and then we will speed up to Mach 8.0. And you can see that we are slowly speeding up while keeping our altitude, of course. So we are 50 miles from the top of descent, so maybe we can do our checklist. So that's gonna be the descent checklist.
Descent checklist. Shoulder harness.
Is secured.
Passenger signs.
Our auto
Pressurization.
is already set, so we have done that at the beginning. We can always look here and check, but that's fine.
Fuel quantity and balance.
Fuel quantity and balance. That's here, so it's pretty balanced. They are just 110 kilograms of each other, so that is perfectly good for now. If it was not balanced, what you can do is that you can use these three buttons. So the gravity cross flow would try to equalize the fuel levels in the two wing tanks. Of course, you should only turn that on when you are straight on level, otherwise the gravity will not pull them balanced. Or you can use pumps to pump fuel from the left tank to the auxiliary tank, which is also in the center actually, or from the right to the auxiliary. So if you wanted, we could put some fuel from the right tank to the auxiliary and make it even more balanced. That would be one option to do, but it's fine within the limits, so we are not going to touch anything, just to be safe. Here I'm going to zoom back a bit further. Ali, am I in the wrong? That's the range. I want to make that less. Okay, good. So fuel quantity and balance is checked.
FMS, landing data, charts.
There is only one thing we need to set here, is in the performance menu and the approach performance. And for that we can send maybe the CPDLC once more, because maybe there is new weather available. So we already have in the terminal weather request, we have already filled this out. We just send it, and very soon we'll get the reply of how the weather is. And then we can fill that in for the approach. So we have to click, make sure that the approach is selected. We have received the data, and then we have winds of 010, 010 with 4 knots. So that's very little wind, not far from the runway axis, 17 degrees. QNH is 1020. We can already put that on the standby to remind us. So it's 1020. 1020. Then it gives you the pressure altitude. And then we will dry runway, so that's perfectly fine. We can have a look at the others. So these are the reference speeds. We will have a landing weight of 15.4. It's gonna be probably like 200 liters less fuel by then. We can actually check that by going to leg info, and then here you can see the fuel prediction. So now we are at 2060 at the next leg at LARYS. will be at 2060, so now we are at 2140. 2140, and then if you go next, you can see that by the runway, which one is the runway? Legs, previous page, runway 03, we should be 1930, so that's 200 kilograms less, so then you can say that your landing weight is gonna be 200 kilograms less than now it is, because now your gross weight is 15.4, landing weight is 200 kilograms less, so that's 15.2, and then you can put that in here, and then new V speeds are calculated. You see that everything is fine. You can send those V speeds, then they are sent. That's complete. So now we know our reference speeds. And here you can see that your maximum landing, we are well below the maximum landing weight, so no issues. So that's set. The FMS is prepared. Landing data set. Charts are prepared. So that can go back to legs. And that can be closed. We can put it. We can leave it here.
Approach briefing.
Approach briefing. So we'll fly an arrival that we have already prepared. You can have a look. So we'll fly this arrival, the approach, the ILS Zulu to runway 03. We'll come from Moped. We'll fly the 13 DME arch for the Lanzarote VOR, and then intercept the 031 inbound to the VOR, and then from there it's just going to be a simple ILS. You will see it's very easy with the plane. In flight the FPS is a bit lower, but I find it's quite well balanced. Sometimes there are some strange dips in the FPS during the flight. Other people have also reported that, and we are coming up at the top of descent, so I have to quickly set a lower altitude. We'll set already 3000 feet, and then you have to set VNAV, and then now path is okay, and now we are capturing the vertical path. It's good that I remember that. And then since there is auto throttle, the plane throttles down to keep the speed what we want it to keep. But we would like to lower already our speed to slowly 7.2 first, and then actually 220, because if I zoom out here, you can see that we have a 220 speed limit at LTA 41 already. So I think I will already do that. Switch to speed. Close this. Close this. Switch to speed and go down to 220. It will take some time. We might have to use some air brakes, speed brakes, to make that, because the plane will basically go down to idle. I'm not sure we'll make that speed limit without speed brakes, but we'll make sure we do it properly. Okay, so approach briefing, we'll fly that. That approach briefing is complete.
VNAV transition flight level.
We already said that.
Descent checklist complete.
Descent checklist is complete.
In-range checklist next.
We'll do the in-range checklist when we are starting the DME arch, maybe. Or at Moped. We'll do the in-range checklist at Moped. So now we are good. This can go back to just the chart view and zoom in a bit more. Alright. We can also go and play the descent message for the passengers if we want. I actually don't have to stand up because I have programmed this somewhere. And that is here. So we can come here and say, okay, there is no descent, only landing. But we can do an overwater.
Ladies and gentlemen, if we may please have your attention. During today's flight, we will be flying.
Okay.
Therefore,
So we are on descent, but we start to need slowing down, because in 20 nautical miles we should be at 220 knots. And we have already put in the airport OAT. So that's actually somewhere else. I think There is somewhere where you can set that, and then an altitude compensation is being calculated, but it's fine. We don't need that. But unfortunately, we have to click away the message on all the CDUs. It's a bit annoying. Okay, this should go back to legs. And let's start slowing down because we are too fast. So we'll pull out some speed brakes. Now it even reminds us check speed, so we'll put out a good amount of spoilers, maybe full. And that will help us slowing down. See, now our FPS is again 67, like it was 30 something before. There are some strange dips sometimes. It's when things are loading. I have the feeling when some scenery loads because of the multi-threading of the aircraft systems, but it's just I'm just thinking out loud. Then it might be that puts some more pressure on the CPUs, and since the systems of the airplane are multi-threaded all over the CPUs, it creates more of a performance effect than with other airplanes where the systems are not multi-threaded. So when X-plane loads other things with CPU resources there, it's not as noticeable. I don't know if you understand what I mean by that explanation, but that's my explanation. So we're not really going to meet that speed limit, I have the feeling. So we started putting out the speed brakes a bit late. Of course, if there was ATC, they would have hopefully advised us in time. And there is actually some people on the ground at the Lanzarote, but they already arrived, so that's fine. We don't have to say anything there either. Maybe when we approach, when we are closer during the approach. And we have to further slow down to 200 knots, so we'll have to keep our spoilers fully out. And we are at full idle, basically. And so at the LTE 41 Lima Tango Echo 41, we should be at 220 knots. We will be a tiny bit above, but actually not that horribly. Like, okay, a bit. Okay, but our checklists are fine. Decent checklist was completed. The next is going to be the in-range checklist. So now we are just following a simple 3-degree descent path. And even we have the preset nav in case of the flight computer wouldn't switch over to the ILS properly, but it will actually, it's going to be fine. I'm going to also here on the other display zoom in. And there is, just like in the Boeings, the banana which shows where you should reach the preselected altitude. So if I now my preselected altitude is really incorrect. But so if I do the preselected altitude to 3,000 feet, I think that's where the approach started. 2,300 actually. So if I put it to 2,300, where it should be, then you can see here is the banana. So this is where it shows where you will reach that level. So if I do it to 10,000 feet, or flight 1100, then you see it's between after Muppet somewhere. But I'm going to already put it down to 2,300. You can also see, so I can preset at 2,300 already, but you see that the next constraint, okay, now we have to slow down to 200, so I'm going to pull the speed back to 200. So if I put it to 2,300, then it says still in red 5,000 is our next constraint, because there is a point where you have to be at 5,000 or above at Moped, so that's our next point, where you have to be at 200, maximum 200 knots and 5,000 and above. So that's why, even though I can set a lower altitude target, it tells me that the lowest altitude he can descend right now via the flight plan is 5,000 feet. And of course, when we pass Muppet, then it will be a lower limit. So, but that's how the systems are here. And you can also see here our spoilers are fully extended as we are slowing down to 200 knots. And I can pull them back, let's say, to half. And then it's still dropping speed a bit, so that's good. Maybe we can say something on the IVAO, also on the Unicom, that we are on approach, on arrival, on descent, runway 03. And our star is the LARYS 2. Let me check. Our star is the LARYS 2 Papa. So we can also say that star is the LARYS 2 Papa. So lots of traffic. We are on the LARYS 2 Papa, arrival for runway 03, descent passing flight level 126, send. Okay. And then let's zoom in a tiny bit more. We are on our speed, that's good. We can probably pull back the spoilers. No, then we start speeding up. So we can maybe put out one flap already. Yeah, we can definitely pull one flap out. No, we don't have to, we don't speed up, so then it's fine. Let's just put a speed target of 190, so we don't go too much over our speed limit here. And you can already see here on the primary flight display that the FMS knows that it will have to switch to an ILS. That's why you see the ILS needle, the localizer needle, basically already here in a dashed form. So that already tells us, okay, it's going to be fine, even though we have prepared this here for a manual switch. The manual switch is not going to be necessary because the flight computer will make the switch. Okay, we are going to go through 10,000 flight level 100, so I'm already going to put on the landing lights. And the logo lights were on, so that's fine. And I think we can do the in-range checklist too. Because we are pretty much in range. We are slowly going to the transition between the ILS and the end of the arrival, but we are actually already on the approach. So let's zoom in and let's do that checklist.
In range checklist. APU. Started.
So this is something the co-pilot does for you if you want. Hi Steph, you are just in time for the landing. So the altimeters we would have to set only later because the transition altitude is 6,000 feet. So the transition flight level is probably somewhere flight level 70. We can already do that because we are clear to a lower altitude, let's say. So that should be 1020, that was it, right? 1020, yes. And let's switch.
3 set, cross check.
3 set and cross check, good. Avionics are set.
External lights
are on.
N1 target
is set for approach. Are he going to set it, or I have to set it? I have to set it. So here we put that to approach. Not yet. Sorry.
Set.
And then this needs to come back. Not the flight director. Sorry. This one. I'm pressing wrong buttons. Okay. Disengage. And then back the ATS. Okay, this is good. So sets, you have to set to takeoff because that's for the go around. Let's also slow a bit more down in the meantime to 180. So N1 target is set.
APU PAX transition.
He will do that for us, but we can have a look. So the co-pilot does it for me, which is always nice.
Avail completed. APU generator.
The APU generator goes on.
CAS.
No warnings, check.
In range checklist complete.
Okay, good.
Before landing checklist next.
The next going to be the before landing checklist, which we'll do on final when we are configured. Here, let's also zoom in. Okay, and now you see that we are nicely descending. It will basically, since it's a 3-degree descent, what we are doing, and we are being taken onto a 3-degree ILS, will basically, when we switch to the ILS, we'll be on the glide slope already. So we are not going to intercept the glide slope from below. We could do that. I could take over now, do a higher vertical speed descent, and then level off and then intercept from below, but we will basically just arrive onto the glide slope, and when we switch to approach, we'll be on the glide slope, and immediately everything will be going to the green. So there's not going to be an armed phase basically, but immediately we'll intercept the localizer and the glide, not even intercept. So we'll be on the glide slope when we turn onto the localizer course. Okay. What else we need to do? Our speed is good for now. Maybe we can start putting in flaps. So flaps to 10 or 20, sorry. Gear is still up. Maybe configuring a bit early, but if we are configured by the time we start going down, the ILS is the best. So we are now flying the arch, so the DME arch. If I put here the actual chart, let's do that. Then you can see here our green airplane is coming on. What we need to do, set the minimums. So the minimums is 460 basically. And you can do this by the reference buttons, and then here you can go to borrow mins, select them, and do 460. That's something we should have done earlier. So minimums are set, and then you can see them displayed here. Good. And then, so that's set. The go around altitude, just that we keep that in mind, will be again on the wrong one. The go around altitude is going to be 5,000 feet. So when we start going down the ILS, then we will have to set that. Let's slow down even more. We are making our turn to the localizer basically almost now. So there's the airport, and we are making our turn. Is anybody on the ground? Yes, so we'll see if we are on final, and we are on final, not yet. So you can see that we are now going around, turning towards the localizer, and we will also very soon switch over. Let's put our gears down. And we don't need any ice protection because it's very warm. And here also you can see that the blue diamond, which is already the ILS, so the glide slope is basically just where we are coming down on our GPS, so the FMS track. So when we will switch, when I arm the approach, which I'm already going to do now, so I hit approach, then it switches to the localizer, and you see we are basically on the glide slope. So we are intercepting the localizer. We have already intercepted the glide slope, so we are on track for landing. And then we can close this. We will put ourselves, so not close this, we will close this. Our reference speed should be 124. So let's slow down to 124. We can go a bit more than but there is no wind, so we can just go reference speed. 124. They do speed was 5, so let's do 128. And then normally we should go beyond below 23, and when we are there I will set 5,000 feet for the go around altitude. And now we can also put down the HUD maybe but make it less bright, because otherwise we can start with bright, but when you get closer you want to make it less bright, otherwise you don't see the airfield itself. So our speeds are good. Let's say
2500.
that we are on the final. Let's put all the flaps down. Let's on the auto unicom say that on final runway 03. I don't need this. Lights are off, on, and then do our checklist.
Before landing checklist. Landing gear lever. Down indicating. No steer.
Armed.
Armed centered clear. Anti-skid.
Hold anti-skid test button. Anti-skid
Armed
test.
tested.
Oh, he did it.
Passenger
Good.
signs.
Are on.
On. Wing cal anti-ice.
So the co-pilot does these things for us. That's off.
Continuous ignition.
He does that. And at the meantime, I can set the
reversers.
go around altitude to 5,000.
Armed. Spoilers. Stowed auto.
Are stowed, good.
Flaps.
Are set.
Set. CAS.
It's checked.
Before landing checklist
Before
complete.
landing checklist
After
is
landing
complete.
checklist next.
And then we are ready to land, basically, so we can put this away. We are 1,500 above, so at one point I will take over. And so there is only one thing to do is, and goedenavond also to you, Ruben. We are just about to land at Lanzarote. The airfield is there. We are nicely on the ILS. Our speed is already set. Go around altitude set. And we are good to go for the landing. We can zoom in here fully if we still want that. So we are more aware of any close terrain, because there is some terrain to the left. We can tell our passengers that we are landing.
May we have your attention,
But I don't want to
please?
listen to this,
We're
so I'm just gonna
approaching
close it. We are 1,000 above. At one point I will take over manually to make it more interesting. I have not done many landings so far, so it's going to be an interesting experience. There is no auto land in this airplane, so we cannot do that. And also, you shouldn't be landing with auto throttle. So the only one thing I don't like is that, for example, I don't know where to pull back the throttle when I take over from the auto throttle. Like in the Boeing, you can see where your setting is, but when the auto throttle is engaged here, then actually the aircraft moves the throttles. But on my physical throttle, I don't see that position. So now I'm going to disconnect, and then here I see that it's there. But I have to be very careful to not go very far. I will push this away, because now we are manual. And we are slowing up a bit, so I have to take back a bit of power. Okay, landing lights coming up.
Flight slow. Flight slow. 100. 50. 40. 30. 20. 10.
Nice. And then spoilers go up. The reversers. Full reverse. I can also do a tiny bit of... Okay, reverser can go back. Spoilers can come back up, because we are still far from the exit. We don't have to slow down too much. And this fail is normal. You can just put that away by the disconnect button on the thrust levers. And then just a tiny bit slower here for the turn. And then you see the map is clever enough. It automatically goes to map mode when you land it and you exit the runway. And then when we are past the holding point, we'll do our after landing checklists, which actually will mostly be done by the co-pilot. So this is something which helps here. But you can, again, I will remind you that you can all turn that off if you want, and then you have to do everything like you are used to doing everything on these planes. Okay, so we are past the holding point, I think. Good. And then we can do the checklist. I will put the chart quickly away a bit.
After landing checklist. Landing pulse recog lights.
Okay, I have to do that part myself, so landing lights off.
Off. Anti-collision lights. Off. Continuous ignition. Off.
Okay, so that's
Windshield
something,
heat.
those are things he does.
Off. Probes. Off. Wing anti-ice. Off. Cowl anti-ice.
We have that off, so that's checked.
Spoilers.
Spoilers are stowed,
Flaps.
flaps are
Zero.
zeroed, he does that.
ATC TCAS. Alt on. Radar mode. Standby. After landing checklist complete. Engine shutdown checklist next.
Okay, good, so that's done. Then we can look at the chart and we'll park ourselves somewhere in front of the terminal, the old terminal, because we don't have any gate. Not going to connect to gate, so we can just come in straight here and then go left. Okay, so let's do that. And then here the CDU already tells you the flight log, how much fuel you used, what was takeoff time, landing time, en route time, distance. So it is clever enough to tell you these things by itself. Yeah, the landing was surprisingly good. I have to say this was the best landing so far I've done with this plane. And okay, there's an APC exam starting somewhere else in Brazil. That doesn't interest us much. Okay, we'll park ourselves nicely and then do a shutdown checklist. Or maybe after parking, immediately disconnect from a IVAO and then show you the replay of the landing. Because I noticed that if you put everything down, chokes and everything, then it seems like for some reason the plane doesn't want to remove the chokes for the replay, so that looks a bit weird. Okay, we'll just go in front of the terminal. This is the old terminal, so where the one more, where the stairs are for the entrance. And by the way, this scenery is freeware. It can be found on in the description of the video. The only thing I don't like about flying these business jets is that they are never parked at gates, and I like the gate system, so the docking system where you have to like line up yourself properly with the gate using these safe dock systems, and you never have to do that with these planes. And we're gonna cheat and look outside a bit. Okay, so after landing checklist.
Engine shutdown checklist. Taxi lights.
Engine shutdown checklist. Taxi lights go off. Taxi lights.
Off. Parking brake.
Is set.
Reverse thrust. Stowed.
Is stowed.
Generators 1 and 2.
They should go off, and because the APU gen he already turned on. So on approach, the APU on this plane is turned on, and the APU gen is already turned on. So then, when we arrive, we can immediately shut down everything without having to have external power connected and everything, and anything. So you can save fuel, I guess, with that. Not sure, but I guess that's the reason. So generators off.
Engine 2 shut down.
For the engine 2 shut down, we simply remove the fuel, so we pull this back. This is engine 2, right? Engine 2 is the left is engine 1, so engine 2 is the right.
Fuel
Okay.
boost pumps.
Fuel boost pumps.
Off. Fuel
off.
system.
They are good. Check it up on both fuel both pump switches. And they are there. Inop. These messages are displayed. Good. Check.
Engine 1 shut down.
Engine 1 can also shut down.
Check ITT below 350 degrees Celsius.
And it's going below. It is below.
Anti-ice
Is off.
14th stage.
14th stage is off.
Beacon.
Beacon light when the engines pull down, not fully, so you have to wait a tiny bit. See, the engine is still going on quite well here. But when N1 is 0, then we can do that. So beacon lights are off.
No steer.
No steer is down here, can go off.
ATC TCAS.
Can go to standby, and we can do that just via here. That's the fastest. Standby.
Parking brake if chocked.
Not yet, but we'll ask the guys to chock us. We'll not ask the guys to chock off because I want to show the replay. And like I said, when we get chocks, then the replay can get a bit strange. So, since we are not flying for any tour and anything, I can disconnect from IVAO and I can show you the replay immediately. So I'm going to do that now. Disconnect. Okay, we disconnected from the network, so let's do the replay and then we'll continue the checklist from the chocks. I'm just gonna make a note myself. Should that not reappear there, but I think it should be fine. Okay, so replay. More. Okay, that's a good position to start, I guess. And let's see from outside first. And of course, in the darkness, it's a bit difficult, but try to find an angle that you can see something. Of course, when the landing lights appear, then you can see it better. It is very quiet, I think, for the replay, and it's a bit annoying. For the replay, you don't see the lights. Oh, seriously? Can you do that manually? Let's see, maybe we can do that. And that's a bit annoying that that's not remembered. Okay, we're playing. Can you do that manually? No. Oh. Then I know how to do it. Okay, let's. Also, the flaps are not put out for the replay. Oh, so you have to fully configure yourself before you do the replay for the replay. That's a bit stupid. But then let's do that. So let's put flaps fully out. Let's put the landing lights. Landing lights on. Oh, strange, they were on here. And the beacon lights on. Anti-collision lights on. Let's try the replay now. Yeah, of course you don't get, that's why there was no noise, because the engines are also not running the replay, which is a bit strange. They should really do that, fix that. Okay, but now we have lights. Okay, now we have lights at least. That's something. Okay. So let's see this butter. There was still a tiny bit of a bounce. No matter. And well, it's very dark, so I don't think there is a point much in checking out other angles. We can try still from the point of view of the runway threshold, which is always nice. But in the darkness, it's a bit difficult, of course. But I wanted to do real time. Yeah, there's a tiny bit of a bounce. Probably like deploying the speed brakes a bit late or still being a tiny bit fast on when touching down. But well, that's all right. This is a bit of a pity that in the replay you don't see the proper values anymore, and you have to set the lights for the replay. I expected that that would not be the case, but okay. And now then we have to turn all these things back off. So the landing lights are already off, text lights off, beacon lights off, anti-collision lights off, nav and logo lights can still say. And then continue with our checklist, of course.
Passenger signs.
Parking brake if choked. We still wanted to do that, so let's ask for chokes. So chokes on. And then we will get a thumbs up when that's done. Whew, long stream. So we'll get a thumbs up when the chokes are in. Thumbs up is here. We can also visually just quickly check. The chokes are there, so that's good. And let's go
Cabin
further.
differential.
Cabin differential is 0
psi.
psi. Good.
Engine shutdown checklist complete. Securing checklist next.
Okay, and now, before we go for the securing checklist, we can call the FBO, but we can even use a satellite phone for that. So we have a normal phone, but if you want to be very fancy, then we can pick up the satellite phone, and you can actually check if there is reception. So you can go in the menu, you can go to the where was that? Yes, it's the Iridium SATCOM status. So there are two satellite communication systems, and then you can click Iridium, and then you can see there is a good signal from this satellite. I mean, this is all really simulated. It's mind-blowing, seriously. And with the GPS, you can see we have EGNOS positions here, so there is still some EGNOS refinement of the GPS position on the Canaries. But okay, so let's call our
HotStart flight support. Jenny speaking. How can we help?
and then we can tell Jenny to put in a GPU. No, we don't need a GPU. We'll just shut down on the batteries. So just come and take the passengers, and then yes.
I'll have that over with you in a minute or two.
And then we can quickly. No, that's it. Thanks.
Always a pleasure. Take care.
And then we can open up things for our passengers. This needs to go. A quick look in here. Nobody did something funny in the toilet, right? Okay, good. You can see that we have arrived. You can also click this out nicely. And then we can open our door by clicking here and then just slightly pushing it that it starts falling, and then it opens up on itself nicely. And then when Jenny, not really Jenny, but when the taxi chauffeur comes, then a black van will roll up to the side. And we'll probably see that from our chair too. Normally on the left side the black van will come to take our passengers. So passenger door is open, but that's expected since we just opened it. And then the securing checklist. We can also do our securing checklist.
Secure and checklist. Emergency lights.
Emergency lights can go off.
AC/DC utility switch.
Can go off. Wait, that was already off. No, off, and we have to wait 3 minutes with that. But the headsets are off already, right? I put my headset. No, I haven't put my headset down. Headset is off.
Headset thrust reversers.
Thrust reversers are off. That's now they are off.
Chocks.
Chocks are
Parking
installed. Parking brake can go off now. We have chocks, so you push in the brakes, and then you can then push the parking brake off. And then the hydraulic pumps can go all off. We can also monitor that if we want by putting in here the hydraulic page, so you can see now all the pumps are okay. So everything goes off, and then you see all the pumps are now white.
Nav lights, logo
nav lights and logo lights can go also off. If I turn the APU generator off, then that's going to be still fine because we have battery, but we might lose the displays. I'm not so sure about that. Let's just connect an external power to be safe here. And then we can do that also the other way around here. Put on the ground frequency and then
Go ahead,
toggle.
Cockpit.
We cannot ask them to connect. I have to ask Jenny. Okay, great. So I have to ask Jenny to do that. Now we're just gonna call her.
HotStart flight support. Jenny speaking. How can we help? Of
Give
course,
me a
I'll have
GPU.
that over with you in a minute or two. Anything else?
No, that's all.
Always a pleasure. Take care.
And then here in the menu you can also actually show service status, and then you can see what's going to happen. So the passengers are waiting to deboard and the AC GPU will be here in 3 minutes. So that's something. And also hi to Brecht, thanks for joining. To this stream, I hope it was very useful also for everybody who joined in for a while. To clear up this, actually we can also just cycle the flight director once, and then also this is cleared out. And we are going to switch off the APU power, but first we'll get components. You can click on the screws. Ah, okay. Ah, yeah, true. Great. Yes, that's a good tip. That's a good tip. So you can click on the screws of these panels to click them out. That's a very good tip. I was looking for the click spots, so thanks, Brecht. That was a nice thing to know. And our passenger car is still not here, so I don't know where is our driver, but we are waiting for the passengers to deboard. And we are waiting for the GPU to show up. What else we were doing? We already turned that off. I've showed you all the other things you can do here with the panels. So we just have to wait 100 more seconds. In the meantime, the 3 minutes has passed since we did the AC-DC utility switch off, so that should be fine. We can stop that timer. Yes, what I wanted to show, sorry, what I wanted to show is that you can actually see within the plane what was your landing G-force. So if you look here to the left, then in this menu you can hold this for 2 seconds, and then you see our landing was 1.3 G. So it started at 0 because 1 G is whenever you just sit in your chair, right? So then you have 1 G. So we had the 0.3 Gs on top of that. So of course that's a bit different. That's what the landing rate monitor displays. They are calculated in different ways. I cannot tell you what's more precise. This is probably fine. In 1 minute our AC is going to be there. It's a bit weird that the passengers are still here, to be honest. They're not waiting for any... I mean, the boarding lights are not on, but I don't think that's a difference. Of course, I turned the AC/DC utility already off, so that I cannot turn back on. But I just want my GPU so I can go further with switching the plane off. But we are almost there, so if you are still hanging in on the stream, then I think in 5 minutes we will be done. Really. Okay. Okay, so the GPU should be here. You see GPU on. Not yet available, so...
Ground to cockpit. AC ground power is connected.
Okay, now it's connected. Great, so then we can say it's in use, and then we can also now go further with the shutdown. So if I click the electrical panel, then you can see that we have the AC from the GPU available. Okay, so the checklist further was, but I'm going to first they are still waiting for the board, I don't know why. Okay, so APU nav lights, logo lights are already off. APU generator can go off, which is here. And then now you see that the external power is in use, so we still have our screens, nice. You can stop the APU, then here you can see that it's spooling down. And then you can also hit the, so it's
APU start stop.
It's stopped. And the APU gen, it's stopped.
Packs.
Packs can go off.
LCV, 10th stage isolation valve.
That can go closed.
APU power fuel.
APU power fuel can go off.
ICAS APU gauge.
That's going to disappear as soon as the AGT is reaching a 0. Takes a tiny bit of time, but it's going to disappear. And then we can say not displayed very soon, hopefully. But you can already see that there is no power for the APU here on the AC electrical panel. Okay, let's assume that disappeared. It's going to disappear. And I can remove the AC electrical. Sorry, AC electrical, AC electrical. So that's going to disappear in no time. But I'm
Battery
going to
master.
say, okay, battery master can go off. And I think then we will indeed lose. Not yet, because of course we are on the AC. Battery master is off. Cockpit refuel panel is off. That was not even on. Only at the
Cockpit
beginning.
refuel panel. Service lights.
So now the gauge disappeared for the APU, so that's correct too. Service lights. Service lights, that's here at the back. I should, oh no, but I think I'd already turned those off, and I cannot turn this back on because I switched things off. But what I can turn off is still all the lights in the cabin here. This overhead too, here at the bottom, all the floodlights, integrated lights. PFD, MFD can stay because when I turn back on the plane I want them to be bright. But all these lights can go. Pins are covers. We will do that outside. So I'm going to remove these, stand up. I don't know why the passengers are still waiting to deboard when I asked Jenny to come and pick them up. And of course you would wait a bit after a real flight because these things can get hot. So you wouldn't do that immediately. Is there like a fourth one here somewhere? Yes, a fourth one. And on this side there is only 3. 1, 2 and 3 because these don't need covers. I'm gonna maybe phone once more to Jenny and ask if these passengers are ever going to get deboarded. Oops.
HotStart flight support, Jenny speaking. How can we help?
Okay, no. I said please come take my passengers to the terminal already, so I cannot say that. But for some reason they're still waiting to deboard. I don't know why.
Always a pleasure. Take care.
Do I have like the passenger signs on? Oops.
The airport taxi's here.
Okay,
you,
so I had the passenger signs on, that's why they didn't.
Well, I'll see you next time.
Okay, so now they are deboarding. But they're very well behaved passengers, normally on a real plane. And here's their taxi. Great, okay, so the passengers have deboarded. I can remove that overhead. Don't need the service status. And then finish up. Pins and covers are installed.
Securing checklist complete.
Secure checklist is complete.
No further checklists.
No further checklist. So what we do now is just use our flashlight, and we'll see we don't need the AC power anymore, even though it's available. And then we can also take the ground power out. And now the ground power is removed, so everything is quiet. So that's it.
Ground to cockpit. All vehicles are disconnected and clear.
All vehicles are disconnected and clear. Everything is off. We can also leave the airplane. Oops, but first, yes. So we can leave the airplane and close it back after us. And then you will see the last action item after we close the door, which is sometimes a bit tricky. So you have to like push it up all the way up. Okay, and then things to do is to turn this and then push it in, and then the plane is closed. Of course, you would use your key to close it, but that's it. And then you can actually walk away from the plane. So I'm gonna walk towards the terminal, and then you get back into the FBO. And that's it. That's how you can end every flight, and that's how you can start every flight. And if you want, you can read some information here about the Monosupap, which is a rotary engine design, clearly from 1913. So interesting, interesting. It's a very, very nice plane. It's amazing to fly, but as you can see from this stream, it takes ages. Yeah, I can only recommend if you have the money to spend for it and you think you will fly with the business jets, this is a great investment. It's a version 1.0, but barely any bugs. I'm seriously, you've seen we've done a full flight without issues. The performance is fine, and there will be new things coming. The update for X-Plane 12 will be free, so I think if you want to make a good investment, this is really the best plane for X-Plane right now. Thanks for joining for the stream. Hopefully soon I will have a real flight again. And then the next video will be a real flight training video as usual. I try to do one flight training video and then one stream. We'll see each other online on the Discord of IVAO Benelux, or you can comment on the videos anytime or contact me if you have questions. Thank you for joining. Thank you very much. It's very late already, so I hope you don't have to stay up for me just because of this stream. If you watch it later, thanks for watching it later, and fly safe and see you next time. Bye bye.